Jiang Ming's glove is dissolving under a swarm of tiny scorpions, and Kang Xuan's killing intent has never been this personal. The Heavenly Emperor just lost a foundation he spent hundreds of millions of years building, and he's not the forgiving type. Leave a like and subscribe to see whose Tao vessels shatter first. Ming's eyebrows were tingling uncontrollably. Name Kang Xuan. Race congenital saint spirit. Gender male. Cultivation demi-sage background. Heavenly Emperor of the Xianxia Great Chiliocosm. Relationship -33. Talent. Demi-sage status. At the beginning of the ancient times when heaven and the earth were first beginning its cycle, a stone imbued in chaotic energy fell from the sky. Taking the opportunity to absorb the energy from the evolution of heaven and earth, it merged with the clear air of the sky, tainted the Xuanhuang origin essence, and finally emerged itself. He took Kang as his surname to depict his origin and Xuan as his last name to determine his goal of pursuing the mystical Tao. In the ancient times where all spirits were initially born, there was no order to the world. The world was filled with countless murders and the world was in chaos. Kang Xuan built the mystical palace, sheltered the people around the place, and made a name for himself. As his influence was getting greater and greater, he somewhat realized the will of heaven. When he unifies the universe, he will be able to sanctify the way of the great eternal Tao and enter the saint realm. Being excited with the fact, he began taking radical actions in managing his influence and competing to dominate the world. Because of his overbearing behavior, he was targeted by many, and as a result, his force was besieged and suppressed. He ended up with injuries and managed to escape. Although there was no decisive result from their fight over world dominance, there were a few peerless individuals who managed to embark on another path down the road of cultivation, and those of the Saint realm were born one after another. Upon Kang Xuan's full recovery from the injuries, all the positions for Saint were already full. Kang Xuan screamed in grief and indignation, yet what else could he do? Among the 7 saints, some were enjoying the peace it brought, some were in pursuit of a higher realm, while some established sects of their own. Unknowingly, the 7 of them had divided the world into pieces, treating the universe as the chessboard and using the living beings on it as the chess pieces to play a game. Years after years had gone by, yet Kang Xuan's cultivation base remained stagnant. Though he was at the pinnacle of the quasi-sage realm, he was unable to enter the demi-sage realm. Because of the 7 saints, he could only hide in a corner and watch as the world changes. He even went into the chaos in search of great opportunities. However, it was too dangerous in the chaos. He managed to return from the brink of death but was injured. It took him another hundreds of millions of years to recover. On one day, the sky suddenly trembled while the sun and moon did not shine that day. The fetal membrane of the world was torn apart, and 49 chaos beasts forcefully descended from the outside. Each of them had the terrifying strength of a late quasi-sage and even possessed the innate special ability of devouring all living beings. Their physiques were also extremely powerful. Upon their descent, they proceeded to devour the starry sky and destroy all living beings. What was shocking was that every one of these beasts could fend themselves a little from the Saint Lord. Moreover, these beasts weren't even from the same place. Whenever these beasts were about to be killed or suppressed, they would self-destruct. That day, the sky turned pale as the heaven collapsed along with the destruction of the starry sky. Who knows how many living beings were killed? Even the heirs of the saints suffered heavy casualties. After finally taking down every one of them with great effort, there came 4 Saint Lords from the outside worlds who launched their attack forcefully. He saw with his own eyes how extremely powerful the 4 Saint Lords were. There were even 2 Saint Lords that were blown up even while they were still in their own world. Fortunately, their primal spirit remained immortal in this world. Hence, they could be reincarnated after a period of time. Seeing that their defeat was inevitable and that they would all be killed, if it was to happen, the Saint Lords would need ample time to recover and the whole world might fall completely. Several Saint Lords chose to self-destruct, directly dragging the other 2 opposing Saint Lords to their deaths, leaving the other 2 severely injured as they fled the scene. At the end of the battle, only 1 Saint Lord survived. At that time, the bloody rain didn't fall from the sky, nor was there the wailing of the ghosts or gods, because the entire Xianxia Great Chiliocosm was crippled, and almost all living beings were wiped out. Even Kang Xuan was at the brink of his death. The only surviving Saint Lord evoked a mystical technique to repair the world, while the remaining 6 Saint Lords were reborn in the origin of the world. Due to the fact that the world was seriously damaged from the invasion, the recovery of Saint Lords was relatively slow. Even so, they managed to gradually return to their positions within 100 million years. Heaven and the earth had almost recovered, and the living beings of the world had become extremely prosperous and abundant. At that time, there were only the incomparably vast heavenly realm, the vast starry sky, and innumerable mortal planar worlds. Kang Xuan had already recovered. He managed to grab the opportunity to comprehend the changes of Tao fluctuation during the Origins recovery period and leapt into the demi-sage realm. One day, the 7 Saints Lords suddenly requested a meeting, and those who attended were all all peerless experts above the quasi-sage realm. At that time, there were very few peerless quasi-sage experts. There were only 18 of them in total, and basically all of them had experienced the cruelty of the war. The Saint Lords proposed to erase the traces of the previous war, and no one rejected the proposal whatsoever. It was also said that because of the dangerous chaos and the potential that they might be invaded by foreign experts in the future, they were prepared to block off the portals, create a unified force to govern the universe, and thus the Heaven Court was formed. To strengthen the combat power of this world and greatly increase the world's self-defense, the 7 Saint Lords worked together to deduce the law's net of holy Tao and spread it to every corner of the universe. With the establishment of the law's net, even if the former 4 Saint Lords were to descend again, they would definitely be able to kill them. The ultimate secret of the law's net was only in the hands of the 7 Saint Lords. In addition, the Heavenly Emperor held the greatest authority and could exert the combat power of a Saint Lord at his initial stage. Also, for the sake of fairness, they allowed the quasi-sage experts themselves to select a Heavenly Emperor. Due to Kang Xuan's ancient status, the extensive contacts that he had, his relatively modest personality and ample strength, the honor of becoming the Heavenly Emperor naturally fell on him. From then on, the Tian Kang Great Chillicosm entered the era of the Heaven Court. Kang Xuan was extremely conscientious and diligent. He was able to maintain the Heaven Court in good order. The living beings lived prosperously, and the number of experts increased greatly. The 7 Saint Lords were very satisfied with the result. After hundreds of millions of years had passed, the 7 Saint Lords had no improvement in their cultivation base. Hence, they were prepared to enter the chaos in search of the Sea of Chaos that they heard from the 4 Saint Lord invaders. Initially, they went into the chaos in pairs and then returned after their exploration of the place. In the end, they finally found the Sea of Chaos. All of them decided to first return and had a discussion among themselves. From the discussion, they deemed that the Sea of Chaos was indeed a holy place for the Saint Lords to practice their cultivation and were ready to head on. However, the Tian Kang Great Chillicosm was the foundation of their birth, their motherland and their homeland after all. As such, they planned to arrange one of the Saint Lords to stay and guard their Great Chillicosm from unexpected events. At the same time, it was stipulated that the position would be replaced every billion years. With the leaving of the 6 Saint Lords and only one stayed, Kang Xuan's calm heart began to become restless. The positions for Saint, there should be a seat for myself. During the time when the only Saint Lord who stayed back spent years in seclusion to focus on his comprehension of the heavenly Tao, Kang Xuan began to actively build up his own influence and secretly cut off the peerless factions who would not abide to his orders or had different intentions. Once the world is unified and that whatever he speaks of becomes the constitution of law itself, great luck would surely converge on him. Kang Xuan believed that he would be able to break the shackles of fate and take over the position as a saint forcefully. However, there were 3 obstacles in total. The first was the Tai Xuan Gate, which was the inheritance of the Tai Xuan Saint Lord. Although it belonged to the Heaven Court faction, it ignored Kang Xuan as the Heavenly Emperor. The second was the Sacred Sect, or the Saint Spirit Palace. During the last invasion, the sect did not give in their all and retained quite a bit of their combat power. At that time, 2 quasi-sages from the sect survived. They later grew at a very fast pace. They seemed to be obeying the Heaven Court, but they were always treating major events with reconciliation. The third obstacle was the God Clan. They were the remnants of the ancient powerful races, collectively known as the God Clan. They were very faithful at the beginning, but since the departure of the 6 Saint Lords and that 6 quasi-sages were born in the clan, they no longer paid attention to him, the Heavenly Emperor. Kang Xuan secretly monitored and observed while plotting at the same time. He discovered that the Tai Xuan Gate was gradually dominated by people from the human race. While the God Clan being an ancient race, they enjoyed consuming flesh and blood, especially the flesh and soul of human beings. Hence, he took this contradiction as a chance to promote the war between Tai Xuan Gate and the God Clan. After several battles, the 2 forces had become sworn enemies. Kang Xuan waited and observed the changes in between them while he plotted against the Sacred Sect. The members of this force were all congenital spirits, or were gods born naturally. They were all born with special abilities and were extremely proud of themselves, considering themselves to be of the noblest bloodline. Of course, the Saint Lords were an exception. There were even many newborn gods of nature that proclaimed that the bloodline of the Heavenly Emperor was not as noble as theirs. However, this force was extremely xenophobic, as they operated on their own. They did not have 2 powerful enemies. In addition to them being very powerful themselves, it was difficult to scheme against them. Finally, he found an opportunity. The Sacred Sect had a female saint spirit named Yu Xin. She was arrogant and sought to be the strongest of all. However, she also was curious about the outside world. When she went out for her practice, Kang Xuan had his wisp of consciousness reincarnated. With his authority as the Heavenly Emperor, he suppressed the karma effect, interfered with the heavens' prophecy, and gave his reincarnated body a clean background. His reincarnated body improved in cultivation at a very fast pace. He was also knowledgeable and was known as one of the rare geniuses in the local area. By accident, Yu Xin met him and they traveled together. Yu Xin fell in love with him. Soon a child named Yin Zhan was born. Under the intentional arrangement of Kang Xuan, the sacred sect learned that Yu Xin fell in love with a man of the human race and gave birth to a son. All members of the sacred sect were furious and began their chase to kill the man. Kang Xuan's reincarnated body intentionally led the sacred sect to the sects and main cities of the human race one after another. Due to the battles, many of the human race were either dead or wounded, and it also set ablaze the rage of the peerless experts from the human race as they proceeded beheading many gods of nature. After all, the human race was the largest race in heaven and earth, and their potential was boundless. If the sacred sect provoked the human race were to be provoked, the sect would definitely be isolated. Their seeds of hatred were deeply planted. As the chaos was getting bigger and bigger, Kang Xuan knew that it was time to end all these. After he secretly allowed the child to escape by faking his death, both his reincarnated body and Yu Xin died in battle. As for Yin Zhan, Kang Xuan had a complicated feeling about him because he was his son after all. Hence he secretly accepted him as a disciple and began to nurture him as best as he could. He was planning to use Yin Zhan as an excuse of righteousness to forcefully intervene with the sacred sect in the future. Also, by guiding the human race into the battle, it would not be difficult for him to subdue the sacred sect in the future. With the whole plan finalized, he would only have to let the world run its course. Coupled with occasional intervention in secret, he was sure to be able to take down the three forces to unite the entire universe as one, and even to completely control the Saint Lord's law's net. What if he were to suppress the Saint Lords with the law's net? He knew he must not have such a thought now. He had to cut it completely. He sat high above heaven, overlooking the civilization of the commoners. Many years passed, yet time remained boundless. He also continued his cultivation in hope of a miracle that will allow him to enter the Saint Lord realm. Even if it didn't work, he could also comprehend special abilities, deduce mysterious techniques, and accumulate himself to an unprecedented level. On this day, when he felt the tremors from the law's net and discovered that it was Yin Zhan who made some movements, he hurriedly paid attention to the whole event. Although he had left life-saving means on Yin Zhan, he felt that it was better for him to pay attention in time for anything. He was extremely surprised upon seeing what had happened. Who is this person? He actually blocked the 3-point double-edged knife with only one finger? Although that was only a great overarching vessel, its blade extremely sharp, yet this human actually blocked the attack? He might not be capable of blocking such an attack with his own physique without being injured. This human was no trivial matter. When did such a peerless existence appear in the heavenly realm? Did the Saint Lord nurture him in secret? Could he be an ancient being who has been reincarnated? Or maybe he came from the chaos. His origin was unknown, but he was certain that this human was a variable to his plan. Just as he was about to intervene, he discovered that the human child had launched his attacks with the intention of killing Yin Zhan. He was furious and evoked the secret technique that he had left on Yin Zhan to protect him, and then teleported him back with the law's net. How dare you kill my son, my disciple, and destroy my plans? No matter who you are, there is only an ending for you. In today's heaven court, there are 5 great emperors and 12 immortal venerates other than myself. These are all powers I can utilize other than the power of the law's net. Hence, if the Saint Lords were not intervening, who else could even compete with me? He activated the heavenly southern gate and descended directly into the world. If this human child was wise enough to resign himself, it would be fine. Else, I'll forcefully suppress him. At the same time, I can show off the heaven court's power. The information from the human path record came to an abrupt end. Jiang Ming, however, was not at peace. As a whole, this world wasn't special, yet the events that the world had experienced were extraordinary. When the 7 positions for Saint Lords were filled, there was the attack from the Chaos Beasts and also 4 incomparably powerful Saint Lords. It was obvious that those Chaos Beasts were controlled or driven by the 4 Saint Lords. Doesn't this mean that any great chiliocosm may be invaded by foreign peerless experts? Jiang Ming was shocked by such a revelation. What if the Tianchang Great Chiliocosm was invaded before the appearance of the 7 Saint Lords? The answer was clear. It was complete annihilation. Can those of the Saint Lord realm invade any world at will? Can't the Great Chiliocosm's self-defensive measures stop them? Jiang Ming had no answers to these questions because he had not reached the corresponding height. Hence, he could only keep these thoughts in his heart and look for answers later on. There are 7 Saint Lords in the Honggu Heavenly Realm, the Tianchang Great Chiliocosm, and even the legendary Primitive Chaotic World. Could it be that this is the limit of the Great Chiliocosm? Jiang Ming had such a thought. It might be a mere coincidence, or the truth. Who knew? In the beginning, the 7 Saint Lords started by treating the universe as their chessboard, and all living beings as chess pieces while they played against each other. After experiencing a great disaster, they were united and unified into one. This led to the creation of the Law's Net, a terrifying formation. Jiang Ming lamented at what had transpired. This was also corresponding to the saying "United we stand." Because of the Law's Net, all parts of the world had been made into a well-connected world. Although this worked well in the beginning, it would eventually lack a bit of vitality along with progressions because all beings would end up being suppressed by the Heaven Court. Is the Saint Realm the limit within the world? Jiang Ming thought that it might be the reason that the 6 Saint Lords left. Even though they discovered great opportunity in the Sea of Chaos, they still had to leave one Saint Lord to guard their world. For this reason, he gave them a thumbs up. He agreed with their act of not forgetting their homeland no matter how high they soared. This heavenly Emperor Kang Xuan's way of doing things was also very good, almost comparable to Tai Yuan. He had begun competing for a chance to sanctify his way of Tao since ancient times but was defeated. Nevertheless, he was not discouraged, but became dormant. He was even capable of standing up to defend his world from the invading foreign enemies. After successfully winning the position as the Heavenly Emperor, he hid his wild ambitions from the 7 Saint Lords. Instead, he worked diligently as ever, never complaining about anything, only to maintain the general order. He did not lose his virtue indeed. When the 6 Saint Lords left, it was only natural for him to think about sanctifying the way of Tao. As for the suppression of Taishuan Gate, the sacred sect and the God clan, whether it was for the purpose of trying to attain the way of Tao, it was still his duty as the Heavenly Emperor. Hence he wasn't wrong. After all, they were too outrageous for not obeying the rules of the Heaven Court. It's just that the methods he used to deal with the sacred sect are rather contemptible. Although that was his incarnation, Yu Xin was also still his wife, yet he watched her die. It was not supposed to be an act of a gentleman, but he was not wrong of him to do so, for he was not human after all. If this guy Yin Zhan knew of the real situation that he was in, would he go crazy? Jiang Ming couldn't help having such strange thoughts in his mind. Right at this very moment, he raised his head and saw a golden gate materializing high in the sky not far away from him. In an instant, a supreme and majestic aura poured down from the gate as if it was the wrath of the gods themselves. Weapon. When it was integrated into the law's net, it could travel through space and descend to any places of the world. In any occurrences of wars, the soldiers of the Heaven Court would be able to arrive at any time. This was also one of the terrifying things about the Heaven Court. Sometimes even escaping was considered a blessing when you go against the Heaven Court. Ms. Yi, you should leave first. Jiang Ming looked at the golden heavenly southern gate and telepathically muttered to Ye Qingxian. Alright, Ye Qingxian did not falter, nor did she hesitate. She secretly connected with the Supreme Order, and with that her whole figure disappeared out of thin air, entering the Supreme Pagoda. As long as she stayed there, she would be absolutely safe. The southern heavenly gate was 1,000 miles high and 100 miles wide. A large number of heavenly soldiers and generals were pouring out from it. They stood atop the accumulated clouds, clad in golden helmets and golden armors, giving off an immeasurable majestic aura with imposing manners. In the blink of an eye, 100,000 heavenly soldiers and generals had formed a large array formation and integrated into the law's net. The heavenly soldiers were cannon fodder to begin with. However, Jiang Ming saw something different here. These heavenly soldiers formed a great array formation, turning themselves into a medium, and could communicate with a very terrifying power. Standing in the very center was an old man with white hair and silver beard, holding a whisk in his hand. A simple glance and you could tell that he was a real deal. There were 4 great overarching golden immortals standing to his left and right, an extremely luxurious front indeed. Fellow Taoist, how should I address you? From which immortal land do you originate from? The old man shook his whisk and asked with a smile. Fellow Taoist, don't you introduce yourself before asking others? Jiang Ming stood up in the air, looked at the old man at the same level as him. He then sat back and a supreme chair naturally appeared under him, with 3,000 divine beasts carved on it, gleaming with an immeasurable majestic aura. Don't you ever know of me? The old man was a little shocked, but he believed that the young man in front of him was not from this realm. Otherwise, how could he not know the existence of the Emperor of the Heaven Court? Moreover, this person in front of him was obviously from the human race. All the peerless beings of the human race had already been recorded by the Heaven Court, and there was no record of such a person. I am the Verdant Emperor, one of the 5 emperors of the Heaven Court. My name is Dongfang Changqing. I assist the Heavenly Emperor with trivial matters. The old man smiled and said, Fellow Taoist, can you tell me your name and origin? You should have guessed it. Jiang Ming responded with a smile. I'm Jiang Ming of the human race, originating from the other realm. I had a certain fate with someone of this world. However, that someone was almost being killed and I had no choice but make a move, all in the name of saving this person. By the way, I killed the immortal King Gu who was under Yin Zhan's command. After doing all the evil things he had done, in order to vent his anger, he even made a move on me. Such was the source of the grievances between us. Fellow Taoist Chengqing, as he wants to kill me for no reason. Do you think I should fight back? Jiang Ming went straight to the point, pointed out the cause and effect of what had transpired, and threw the question over to the old man. I have already understood what happened. The way immortal King Gu acted was not in accordance with the law. Dongfang Changqing admitted without hesitation. Of course, there are thousands of living beings, each of which is a separate individual, has independent character and different desires. This also creates the complexity of life. There are good and evil, and therefore there must be laws to keep them restrained. Otherwise, the world will fall into chaos. For any influence, whether it is a clan, a sect, or even the heaven court, there will inevitably be some scums. Such is inevitable. If they are found, they must be dealt with. If they are not found, they will continue to ruin their influence's reputation. Immortal King Gu is such an existence. However, there are bound to be those that manage to escape the legal network but will eventually be punished. They are to be punished under the legal laws, instead of killing them off based on whether they are good and evil. If everyone does so, wouldn't the world be in chaos? Wouldn't the legal laws of the heavens be useless? If a person violates the rules, they should be dealt with based on the heavenly laws, rather than lynching. Fellow Taoist Jiang, am I right? Dongfang Chengqing analyzed the truth with great reasoning. Jiang Ming was speechless. Was what Dongfang Chengqing said something true? Of course, completely standing on the righteousness of reason, what he had spoken of were irrefutable. The heavenly law was the rule, the legal law. If this wasn't the case, the world would definitely be chaotic. Jiang Ming smiled. Fellow Taoist Chengqing, he attacked me with the intention of killing me, but I was so powerful that I ended up being the one that killed him. This should be considered self-defense if I may say so myself. Jiang Ming had checked the human path records on this person. Dongfang Chengqing was born of a congenital spirit. He had a strong foundation, coupled with great resources, and adhered to the principles of the law. He came here this time because he was on duty to guard the southern heavenly gate. Dongfang Chengqing startled for a moment before he couldn't help laughing and replied, "It counts. Of course it counts." He wanted to talk about Yin Zhan, but when he thought about it, it was completely untenable in theory. After all, it was Yin Zhan who made the first move. However, Dongfang Chengqing's tone suddenly changed. You've killed Immortal King Go and almost killed our Heaven Court's best god of war after all. It is impossible to justify this without some investigation. The outsiders don't know the reason, and the city below was also destroyed. This requires you to come forth to the Heaven Court to not only explain what happened but also confirm what has transpired. After doing so, we will be able to turn over this article. At that time, I'll invite you to travel around the Heaven Court and the Heavenly Realm. I'll also be inviting a few fellow Taoists to discuss and verify Taos together. Would that be alright? I've always been a person who is open to persuasion but not coercion. With you treating me with such courtesy, how can I not appreciate your goodwill? Jiang Ming smiled. Taoist Changqing, please lead the way. You are really a straightforward person. Be my guest. Dongfang Changqing couldn't help but be overjoyed. He initially thought that Jiang Ming would be difficult to deal with, but didn't expect that he was so easy to talk to. It's just that he was able to pick up from the conversation that Jiang Ming had the confidence. He knew Jiang Ming meant that he was able to go with him to the Heaven Court, and would cooperate well only if the Heaven Court was reasonable. Else they should be the one to watch out. However, Dongfang Changqing was confused about his confidence in going to the Heaven Court. He didn't know what gave Jiang Ming the confidence after seeing the law's net and being alone himself, but he didn't think much about it. Anyway, he thought it would be great if everyone could settle things peacefully. Besides, the other party was from the outer territory, and since he didn't have many details on the person, how would he risk provoking him into anger and become enemies? The two walked towards the southern heavenly gate in parallel. The rest of the heavenly soldiers followed suit. Many of them had their faces flashed with anger. They thought it was ridiculous to treat Jiang Ming, who killed the Heaven Court's immortal king, with courtesy. If Jiang Ming was released, the Heavenly Court would lose its majesty and the other officials might be disappointed. As for being right or wrong, the Heaven Court was never wrong. A strange smile flashed across Jiang Ming's face. He presumed that this visit of his to the Heaven Court would not be a peaceful one. However, he didn't care one single bit. This was not his own world after all. It wouldn't matter how much of a scene he might make. Even if the peerless Saint Lord was provoked in the end, it wouldn't be a big deal, as he could just leave just like that. Jiang Ming thought it would be best if the Heaven Court would treat him with courtesy. If he was good, everyone would be good too. Otherwise, he would just turn the Heaven Court upside down. As he stepped into the southern heavenly realm, Jiang Ming felt the vibration of the spatial force. At the very next moment, he found himself appearing in an incomparably wide square. Auspicious clouds fluttered above as the rainbows hung horizontally through the horizon. There were even echoes of immortal fluctuations that sublimated the soul. On both sides there were many pillars with coiled dragons gleaming with golden luminance and with immortal powers kept dormant. The pavement that was under their feet was platinum jade, which was a rare treasure in heaven and earth. It automatically absorbed Tao fluctuation and condensed the essence of the immortal spirit. Only places like Heaven Court would be rich and powerful enough to use them to lay the ground. Just simply chipping away one small piece of it would have made everyone in places like the Stone Mansion scrambling for it with great madness. We're now at the reception area for immortals outside of the Heaven Palace. Right in front of us is the main hall of the Heaven Court, where the Heavenly Emperor handles government affairs. The other three directions lead to all parts of the Heaven Court. Dongfang Changqing introduced as he noticed Jiang Ming was looking around the plaque. This is also the center of the Heaven Court, radiating into all directions. Outside the heavenly palace were 2 rows of guards standing. They were armed with long spears while being shrouded in immortal luminance radiating murderous aura. There were 4 of them on each side, all of the golden immortal realm. Their cultivation base was neither high nor low, an appropriate level to be a guard. When they looked over at Jiang Ming, faint bursts of thunderous rage could be seen in their eyes as their killing intent rose. Upon seeing such a scene, the verdant emperor frowned slightly. After stepping foot past the palace gate, the extremely vast main hall was right inside. Above their heads were the sprinkles of Xuanhuang's aura. The atmosphere was filled with endless clouds with a dense divine aura. Immortal officials could be seen on the left and right sides, where most of them were standing. On the furthest end on both sides there were a total of 24 esteemed seats. Currently there were only 2 of the seats taken. Their figures remained blurry to the eyes, hence it was difficult to see their appearance. However, right above their heads one could see the orders of the Tao being evoked, imbued with the supreme law and the power of divinity. Even a great overarching expert had to bow their heads in their presence. Right at the center, which was also the innermost part, was an incomparably huge seat of honor. It was 81 feet high, and sitting on it was a 108 feet tall giant. This person was the Heavenly Emperor. The Heavenly Emperor was of the highest status, the greatest, the most holy, the most majestic, the most noble, the most dignified, representing the highest position and of the highest authority. Below him were all Taoist bodies in human form. This was the prestige of the Heavenly Emperor, with peerless dominance, so much so that no one would have a higher status than himself. Your Majesty. Dongfang Changqing came over to the center, bowing his head slightly. Fellow Taoist Jiang Ming has arrived as invited. The fact that he used the word invite was to show respect to Jiang Ming. Verdant Emperor, please take a seat. The Heavenly Emperor nodded slightly. His voice echoed through the hall, imbued with supreme power. Dongfang Changqing hesitated a little and said to Jiang Ming, fellow Taoist, please be more patient. Jiang Ming merely smiled in response, declining to comment. He had already seen through the Heavenly Emperor's plan based on the human path record. Name Kang Xuan. Status. To think that this Jiang Ming was so courageous to come over. Even I myself admire his valiantness a little. Does he have great confidence in his own strength? Or is there some sort of peerless person backing him up, giving him the confidence that no one would dare to lay a finger on him? Even if he was nurtured by a Saint Lord himself, it is impossible for him to silently cultivate to such a height. It is certain that this Jiang Ming basically originates from the chaos. Alas, the means to shuttle the chaos, no matter how he did it, it is still worth exploring. Now that he's here, this is just the right timing. I'll use him to push forth with my plans. There are many immortal officials from the Taishuan Gate, Sacred Sect and God Clan in the Heaven Court, trying to use them to impede me, hee. No one knows that some of them have already submitted to me. I'll let them come forward to persecute Jiang Ming. Let this ignorant, peerless expert entangle himself with these 3 forces. I will sit back and watch them from afar, adjust my strategy according to the outcome to suppress all these 3 forces. Jiang Ming secretly sighed. This Heavenly Emperor was really an old cunning fox. Just as Jiang Ming arrived at the Heavenly Palace, the Heavenly Emperor had already hatched a plan. Using me as the fuse, Jiang Ming smiled secretly to himself. Dongfang Changqing was seated on the first seat on the left. The Heavenly Emperor portrayed a smile on his face, as if to express his goodwill. However, before he could speak, a young man with a height of 30 feet and a face filled with blood-colored lines standing below took the lead. His Majesty is the Heavenly Emperor, the most venerable, the most holy, and the most noble. And you, a mere mortal, how dare you not even bow down in respect in the presence of His Majesty? You really are a shallow being, incapable of comprehending honors and humility. Jiang Ming merely took a glance at him. He was a great overarching expert from the God Clan, named Hu Sanpao. He served as a general in the Heaven Court and acted as a guard in one of the places. In fact, he had been secretly made to submit to the Heavenly Emperor. Jiang Ming, a slender young man dressed in white, said indifferently, "To have killed our Heaven Court's immortal king and defeated the best god of war, you have committed treason against heaven. This is a heinous crime. Hence he should be executed at the immortal guillotine. To have his body severed in pieces, his soul destroyed, so that he never will be reincarnated, so as to show the supremacy of our Heaven Court." Upon hearing his words, many immortal officials were very well aware of what was happening. Hu Sanpao originated from the God Clan. The person just now, Bai Lu, was from the Sacred Sect. These 2 forces had nothing to do with each other, but they had a tacit agreement just now to make a move against Jiang Ming. Hence, it was obvious that they saw through the intention of the Heavenly Emperor to recruit this human. As such, they rushed to speak up first to cut off the possibility of him being recruited. Are the Sacred Sect and the God Clan really wanting to go against His Majesty? Many immortal officials had doubts in their hearts. By publicly robbing His Majesty of his words, it was akin to refuting His Majesty's in public. Although it was not a direct confrontation, it was already obvious enough. Normally, such a thing wouldn't have happened. After all, although the 2 forces had been growing bigger, there was still too much of a gap when they were compared to the Heaven Court. Could it be that the two forces were joining hands to break away from the Heaven Court? There were a lot of doubts lingering in the hall, yet no one understood what was going on in the end. Jiang Ming's face turned gloomy. Is this the hospitality shown by the Heaven Court towards a guest? Before the owner even speaks, the dogs have started jumping out and barking wildly. Haha, this is really insightful. How dare you? Hu Sanpao yelled. Presumptuous. Bai Liu was furious. To first kill our Heaven Court's immortal king, followed by desecrating our Heaven Court in the main hall. According to the laws of heaven, you are to be killed and your soul destroyed. Hu Sanpao sneered again. No matter what's your identity or where you originated from, if you commit a capital crime, you will be executed. Tell me, scumbag, will you end your life yourself, or do you go to the immortal guillotine for a walk? What did you say? Jiang Ming finally got angry. Jiang Ming didn't mind going along with them when they put up such an act, but he was enraged when he was being insulted. God damn it, do you think I don't have a temper? I'm done with the acts. I want to flip the tables over right now. Hee. A mere beast that is ignorant to the world. Before Hu Sanpao even finished speaking, Jiang Ming suddenly made a move. Hu Sanpao's pupils shrunk immediately. In an instant, a thought ran through his mind and the law's net appeared. It drew upon the supreme and mighty force to form 720 layers of defensive luminance in front of him. Getting aggressive in the heavenly palace? Insolence! Hu Sanpao sneered. Didn't anyone tell you that the law's net in the heavenly palace is the strongest in the world and can double up our combat power? As soon as his words trailed, he saw a scene that terrified him. The 720 layers of defensive luminance were wiped out in the blink of an eye. A single finger also landed between his eyebrows. Puff. A soft sound could be heard before a hole was seen between his eyebrows. Hu Sanpao's primal spirit was directly destroyed and his vitality was cut off in an instant. A peerless, great overarching expert was killed right in the heavenly palace. The many immortal officials were dumbfounded with a face filled with disbelief followed by endless shock. God damn it, how arrogant and fearless is this guy? Has he grown tired of living? There was a saying in the world that even a saint lord might be suppressed if he were to step foot into the heavenly palace. You said you wanted to destroy my very soul so that I can no longer be reincarnated. I shall fulfill you. Jiang Ming looked over at Bai Lu and launched his attack yet again. Presumptuous. How dare you? Such arrogance! Loud shrieks from many of the immortal officials reverberated in the palace. In an instant, endless thunder appeared out of thin air, as though it was a materialized representation of their boundless anger. Even the heavenly emperor stood up with his face cold and pale. However, he did not make a move. Dongfang Changqing also frowned and was extremely puzzled. Could this person be a fool? There is also Hu Sanpao, who has always been a transparent person in the past. Why is he so abnormal today? He noticed something was amiss, but when Jiang Ming began killing in public, his heart was set ablaze with anger as well. After all, this was the Heaven Court. It was the most sacred place, the most disciplined place, and a place that should never ever be trampled over. Unfortunately, Jiang Ming totally ignored it. Although Bai Lu had already taken out his Dao weapon, evoked his peerless special abilities, and even triggered the law's net, he was still being killed by Jiang Ming with just a punch. All the immortal officials in the Heaven Court were enraged. But the strange thing was that none of them took action directly. Jiang Ming, Dongfang Changqing finally couldn't bear it anymore as he stood up and released an immeasurable divine might. Why did you get physical? That's very simple. It's to cooperate with the Heavenly Emperor himself. Jiang Ming flicked his shirt and said with a big smile. To cooperate with your majesty? Dongfang Changqing suddenly had a bad premonition. The Heavenly Emperor put on a straight face. He was a little puzzled as well. However, Jiang Ming continued. As of today, the 6 Saint Lords have gone towards the Sea of Chaos to realize the realm above the Holy Tao, leaving only one Saint Lord to stand guard, yet he ignores the trivial matters of the world. As an ancient existence, the Heavenly Emperor wanted to sanctify the way of Tao back then, not to mention now. Jiang Ming spoke swiftly. The Heavenly Emperor listened quietly. Do you still want me to continue? Jiang Ming paused and looked at him. Alas, to sanctify the way of Tao, who wouldn't want to? The Heavenly Emperor sighed emotionally. Go ahead, I want to know whether you, a newcomer from the foreign realm, really understand the situation in our world. Great tactic. Jiang Ming gave him a thumbs up. Your words have planted the seeds of doubt in the hearts of everyone present. After all, I am but a foreigner. No matter what I say, it is not worth believing, and that they would have to embrace what I say with a doubtful attitude. Just go ahead. No matter what you say, you won't be able to leave today. The Heavenly Emperor sat down slowly, with grandeur. I also want to know how much you know about our world. Although the rest of the immortal officials were very angry because the Heavenly Emperor had spoken, they could only listen and showed curiosity at the same time. I'm guaranteed to satisfy you. Jiang Ming smiled brightly. He was sure that his next words would definitely make the Heavenly Emperor go crazy and satisfy his wish for a great battle. If you don't mess with me, I won't mess with you. If you provoke me, then I will make heaven and earth despise you. In the Great Chiliocosm, there is a limit to the number of Saint Lords. Once the number is filled, it will be almost impossible for others to try sanctifying the way of Tao. However, there is always a chance in the universe. Such a chance is to gain completely and utmost control of the universe that he is in. To be able to reach the point where your words represent the worlds of the heavens, where your words reflect the law itself, and to have total dominance over the world with it. Jiang Ming paced in the hall, preaching as though no one else was around. The immortals in the heaven court, who were still angry and restless, when they heard him mention about the method of sanctifying the way of Tao, their eyes suddenly brightened, listening carefully and quietly. Even Dongfang Changqing was not exempted from doing so, and the heavenly emperor pricked up his ears. Alas, the way of sanctioning the Tao, this was the ultimate pursuit of a cultivator. As the heavenly emperor, you are already at the very limit under the saint realm, and it is reasonable that you would want to sanctify the way of Tao. Kang Xuan, in the ancient times before the saint lords appeared, you have also comprehended the secrets of heaven. You knew that by ruling all races and dominating the world, you would be able to sanctify the way of Tao. Am I right? Jiang Ming looked at the heavenly emperor. In the hall, breathings were left in stagnation. To think that there was such a secret in the distant ancient times that by dominating the universe would lead to the sanctification of Tao and the role of the heaven court in unifying heaven and earth, they had a somewhat strange feeling when they thought of the return of the 7 Saint Lords. That's correct, Kang Xuan nodded. I didn't expect you to know of such a hidden secret. What kind of secret is this? It's just common sense. After knowing some of the details about you, plus the various past events, it's not difficult to confirm about it through some deduction. Jiang Ming said calmly. Kang Xuan's pupils shrank slightly. Common sense? Not difficult to confirm about it? To hell with your common sense. To hell with it not being difficult to confirm about it. For matters of the ancient times which were especially related to the secrets of the past, only the 7 saints knew about it apart from him. Even if there were 1 or 2 other people who knew of such details, they would definitely not tell others. Such is a real secret. How did he know? Deduction? Went back to the past. Kang Xuan had become restless as he thought. The guy before him seemed to be of some background. He fought for the Saint Lord's position back then, but unfortunately ended up with failure. Now that he's sitting on the throne of the Heavenly Emperor, how would he not eye on the position? Jiang Ming then continued. When the 7 Saint Lords were all present, the Heavenly Emperor knew that he was almost insignificant in their presence. However, 6 of them went on into the chaos, leaving only 1 of the Saint Lords to stay guard. With this Saint Lord having retreated into seclusion to comprehend the way of Tao all year round, it gave him the opportunity. When the opportunity comes, it is natural for him to start planning and put his plans to work. However, there are 3 major obstacles that he had to face if he were to truly reach the point where the Heavenly Emperor's decree is unimpeded, where his words would become the law and that he could give orders to all sentient beings in the world. Number 1, the Tai Xuan Gate. Because it is the inheritance of the Saint Lord, it has a special status. Hence, it has never paid much attention to the Emperor's decree. Number 2, the sacred sect that is based on the gods of nature and innate saint spirits. They see themselves as noble in identity and bloodline, with higher status compared to others. After all, the 7 Saint Lords are also strictly speaking considered saint spirits as well. Naturally, they dislike the heaven court to loom above their heads and even oppose them very much. Number 3 would be the God Clan. This is a powerful race that has been inherited from ancient times. It has a peerless bloodline coupled with long-standing inheritance consisting of countless special abilities and secrets. They have many strong experts and that they were also self-contained. Hence, they tend to be an independent force from the Heaven Court. If the Heavenly Emperor wants to truly and completely take control of the universe, he would naturally want to eradicate or subjugate these 3 forces. Aiming for the position as a Saint Lord, he had long put his plans into action. An example would be Hu Sanpao. It might seem that he is a spy of the God Clan in the Heaven Court, but he has in fact already been subdued by the Heavenly Emperor, and Bai Liu is the same too. The 2 of them stood up just to find out about my background and at the same time lead me towards conflicts against the God Clan and the Sacred Sect. Am I right, Heavenly Emperor? Jiang Ming gave him a squinted smile. Kang Xuan's expression did not change the slightest, and there was even a smile on the corner of his mouth. However, he was greatly shocked in his heart. God damn it. Can this kid read my mind? How does he even know of my plans? There should be no one that knows of this except myself. Could it be that he really has a terrifying deduction ability? That's not right. I've cut off the potential for prophecy and suppressed the karma effect with my status as the Heavenly Emperor. Even if the Saint Lord had deliberately deducted these, he wouldn't have found out. Yet, how does he know all these? I must not admit to these. Never. Otherwise, the sacred sect and God clan will know that I wanted to deal with them. They will definitely be united against me, although I am not afraid it will definitely be troublesome to deal with. As thoughts ran through Kang Xuan's mind, he shook his head as though he looked rather helpless and said, "Fellow Taoist, you are after all coming from the foreign realm and don't know the details of the God clan and the sacred sect. All their experts are tenacious, strong-willed, and adhere to their beliefs. I'm afraid that it's difficult for even the Saint Lords to change them, let alone myself. This is an accepted fact. Therefore, if you were to say something different, it would have been really easy for people to believe in you. But to say that I control them? Haha. As for the position as a Saint Lord, I won't deny that I hope to reach that point in life. As for decrees being unimpeded, where words become the laws and the unification of all sentient beings, isn't that the present case of the Heaven Court? Whether it is Tai Xuan Gate, the Sacred Sect, or the God Clan, they are all under the ruling of the Heaven Court already. To sanctify the way of Tao by unifying the universe, it might have been possible a long time ago. But now, such a path is dead. Alas, the Saint Tao can possibly be achieved only by comprehending the mind of heaven and understanding the way of heaven, to break the world's imprisonment and restrictions and cut off the self-shackles of karma. The Saint Tao that I am planning is to attribute great power of the heavens to myself so that the pinnacle of power can break the shackles, shatter the confinements, and allow me to ascend to the position of saint. This is the true path of Saint Tao. Sirs, although this path of the Saint Tao is only a general concept, such information cannot be spread out. The Heavenly Emperor explained the whole thing in a very peaceful manner, but his tone became a little harsh when it came to that last sentence. We will remember His Majesty's teachings. The officials bowed and saluted in respect. Although they were shocked by Jiang Ming's remarks prior to this, the Heavenly Emperor's explanation, which included the natural characteristics of the God Clan and Sacred Sect, had turned them away from Jiang Ming. After all, they had trusted the Heavenly Emperor, their master, the ruler of the entire world for hundreds of millions of years. Moreover, the critical point was that if Hu Sampao had really submitted to Kang Xuan, why didn't he rescue him? Hu Sampao was an officer of the Heaven Court after all. As a great overarching expert, he was much more valuable being alive than dead. Of course, another reason was because of Jiang Ming's identity, that he might be coming from foreign region. That made him their foreign enemy, who couldn't be trusted easily. Jiang Ming applauded as his face was filled with admiration. I have met another heavenly emperor of a great chiliocosm. To be honest, his plan is far better than yours. In order to become the true master of the universe, he took the initiative to let the Heaven Court collapse and fall by exposing the great array formation that could have trapped the Saint Lords. He even took the initiative to let all the major legions who were loyal to him to die. He himself was even killed. When he thought of Heavenly Emperor Tai Yuan, Jiang Ming really admired him. Everyone in the Heavenly Palace was silent. They had a shocked look on their faces. To intimidate the immortals with just a few words. Who could have done so? Jiang Ming did it. That's not right. An immortal official frowned. The Heavenly Emperor on your side let the Heaven Court fall in order to plot for the position as a saint, sacrifice those who were loyal to him. Even he himself was killed. If he has been killed, what more would his plans be? Isn't this contradictory? Everyone else looked at Jiang Ming, waiting for his answer. Even if it was merely a story, they thought it was very exciting to just listen to it. It's not contradictory. This is because there are too many peerless forces over there and the experts are even more abundant. Jiang Ming explained calmly, in addition to his main body, the Heavenly Emperor has 3 avatars, and the one who died was just one of them. As for the fallen Heaven Court, it was merely to take the opportunity to wipe out all the spies of the other forces in the Heaven Court. As for his own royal followers, he has hid them earlier, awaiting for an opportunity to strike. He used his own death and the fall of the Heaven Court as a lure to pull all the forces into conflicts and only had to wait for his chance to emerge as the last one standing. In comparison, aren't your so-called plans too petty, Kang Xuan? Yang Ming's voice was sonorous, with hints of contempt. His remarks were shocking. Something's not right. Dongfang Changqing shook his head immediately. If you want to convince all the experts of the world about the death of one of the 3 avatars, the avatar itself must have the corresponding strength. If one avatar was already so powerful, what about when there's 3 of them? What about that Heavenly Emperor's main body, equipped with various hidden strengths, plus an eruption of a formation array that could even trap a Saint Lord? What terrifying level of power would that be? Why would he even need to plan such plots to attain the position? He could have just forced his way through. All the other immortals nodded in agreement. Such a Heavenly Emperor was too terrifying. Even if he was to confront a Saint Lord, he might be capable of fighting against him. Why would he need such deliberate plans to win over the position? It would be ridiculous for that Heavenly Emperor to do so, unless he was insane. Even Kang Xuan thought so. Because there are at least hundreds of venerates that are made known to the world, Jiang Ming explained. Upon hearing his remark, Dongfang Changqing was startled. Their great chiliocosm had probably as many venerate as the world Jiang Ming was referring to. However, most of them were not in the heaven court, nor would they enemize heaven court. What if hundreds of venerates bore different intentions towards the heaven court? That would not be easy to deal with at all. Right this very moment, a loud laughter could be heard echoing. A great overarching golden immortal came out of the crowd and made his way not far from Jiang Ming. After he greeted Kang Xuan with respect, he looked at Jiang Ming and snorted coldly. Even if the situation you brought up exists, with the capability of the Heavenly Emperor to control over the general situation of the universe, it is completely possible that he utilize his power to overwhelm the people, divide and deal with the forces one by one. Why would the Heavenly Emperor plan to destroy the forces under His Majesty's own control? After all, His Majesty would be almighty. If such a heavenly emperor really exists, then he's an idiot for sure. However, I'm sure your remarks are fake. You are just trying to divert your heinous crime with such a shocking and mind-blowing story. You first killed the immortal King Gu and almost killed the god of war Yin Zhan. In the heavenly palace, you even lawlessly kill Hu Sanpao and Bai Lu. What arrogance and madness is this? Jiang Ming, do you really think that with just a few words you can negate your guilt? You're just thinking too much. We listened to all that you had to say just for mere entertainment. You're just a mortal who's about to die. A lowly creature barking wildly like a dog, ridiculous. Your Majesty, please allow me to kill this person in order to justify the majesty of the heaven court. This person was careless and eloquent. Right after he finished speaking, he bowed down with respect to Kang Xuan. Jiang Ming looked over and learned that he was called Shi Shangtian. He got a hold of his Dao from a divine mountain and was a loyal subordinate of Kang Xuan. He naturally stood up when he saw His Majesty being humiliated. The rest of the immortal officials also condemned Jiang Ming one after another, and more came forward wanting to put down Jiang Ming on the spot. Kang Xuan said, Jiang Ming, what you said is reasonable and well-founded, but it is too far from reality. If there is such a heavenly emperor in the world who cannot sanctify the way of Tao, this means that the path of the saint will be a dead end for us. There is no need for you to argue anymore. Killing the immortal king and beheading the two immortal officials are heinous crimes, and you should be punished with death penalty. Do you plead guilty? In fact, Kang Xuan was very restless himself. He inexplicably believed that Jiang Ming's remark was true. To think that such a powerful heavenly emperor, who even damaged himself into the plot of achieving the saint realm, was simply incredible. Alas, the road towards the saint, is it really that difficult? Fortunately, there are not that many forces on my side that I have to deal with. I'm very lucky indeed. However, why does this kid remain so calm? This is not normal. Anyway, to prevent having too many nightmares at night thinking about this kid, and to prevent him from exposing my other secrets, I'd better kill him first. But as the Heavenly Emperor, I need to remain calm and collected. If you want to kill me, then I'll kill you in return. Where is the guilt in that? Jiang Ming continued with a smile. Kang Xuan, I haven't finished yet. Are you getting impatient already? Fellow Taoist Jiang, please refrain from your lies. You've caused us to take you much lighter. Dongfang Changqing said solemnly, what is your intention? I don't have any intention, Jiang Ming said. It's just simple. Because Kang Xuan wants to deal with me, I'm exposing his secrets. For example, the conflicts between Tai Xuan Gate and the God Clan was all because of his secret intervention. Tai Xuan Gate is dominated by the human race, and the God Clan likes to eat humans. As such, there's the contradiction. Kang Xuan's brows suddenly twitched as his heart skipped a beat. How does he even know about this? God damn it. Why do I get the feeling that I'm stark naked in front of him? I can't let him continue talking any longer. If this goes on, he might even spill out the number of the immortal king's wives that I had affair with. However, I'm the heavenly emperor. If I become impatient now and give out the order to kill him right now, wouldn't it look like I'm actually admitting to it? Damn it, this is mind-numbing. Why aren't they taking any action but instead enjoy listening to the whole story? Damn it, Jiang Ming continued. The sacred sect is relatively united, hence difficult to deal with. However, you still managed to find an opportunity. Upon discovering Yu Xin of the sacred sect journey around the world, you divided your soul into creating a reincarnation of yourself, got her to fall in love with you, and gave birth to a son called Yin Zhan. After making him escape by faking his death, you secretly took in Yin Zhan as your disciple so that you could intervene with the sacred sect in the future. It's such a pity. For the sake of your scheme, you even led your wife to death. Tiks. Such ruthlessness. When the sacred sect was hunting down Yu Xin, you secretly led them into making enemies with the human race so that it'd be easier for you to deal with them in the future. After all, although the human race is relatively scattered, there are a lot of them in numbers, and there are also many experts among them. Kang Xuan, am I right? The moment when Jiang Ming finished his sentence, the immortals in the hall were in an uproar. The incident about Yu Qin back then had been widely spread. Although it had been a long time, the incident was still brought up from time to time as people lamented her tragic encounters. If what Jiang Ming had said was the truth, then that would make Yin Zhan the son of the heavenly emperor. This seemed to make quite some sense. The origin of Yinjian was a mystery. He was very powerful from birth and his cultivation base improved quickly as well. He had always been placed in the Heaven Court's departments that held great authority, and he was especially favored by the Heavenly Emperor. This may be true. Dongfang Changqing knew of more secrets than the rest. He knew how big of a trouble it was back then. Even the human race dispatched several great monarchs to fight against the sacred sect, but the Heaven Court was merely observing the battle. Furthermore, Yu Xin was just one person. With the sacred sect's resources, they could have easily captured her. Yet, why was it that the trouble was made known throughout the world? The sacred sect ended up having their pride grazed and even formed a deadly feud with the human race. He didn't think much about it when it happened. Now, when he started to think about it, perhaps it was indeed His Majesty who was the culprit behind the scene. If this matter is true, then the other things that fellow Taoist Jiang has said, could they be? Dongfang Changqing's expression changed instantly. How dare you? Shi Shangtian was furious. You brat! It seems that you know you are done for, and so you are deliberately slandering His Majesty. With His Majesty's nobility as the Heavenly Emperor, how could he have done such a filthy deed? In my opinion, you are not a foreigner at all, but a suicidal soldier secretly nurtured by some secluding forces. You're just showing yourself now to break down the unity among us, to discredit His Majesty, and to render the world in chaos. How malicious can your heart be? Your Majesty, I will kill him first and then plead guilty later. A divine axe appeared in Shi Shangtian's hand as he immediately slashed towards Jiang Ming. Your subordinate is requesting to engage in battle. Your subordinate is requesting to engage in battle. In a blink of an eye, more than 10 voices echoed throughout the palace as they charged forward along with Shi Shangtian to attack Jiang Ming ruthlessly. The Heavenly Emperor watched the whole exchange indifferently with immense killing intent already boiling in his heart. This kid must die. He was in a hurry. He couldn't hold back anymore. If it wasn't because of Kang Xuan's insinuation, how would these immortal ministers dare to attack Jiang Ming directly in the Heavenly Palace? They definitely wouldn't dare to do so. Even Dongfang Changqing was aware of the incipient tendency, while the others were observing silently. They didn't care whether Jiang Ming was telling the truth, they were merely taking it as a story, hence they didn't care about the plot of the Heavenly Emperor as well. Haha. Jiang Ming suddenly guffawed with hints of sneer. As he moved, he evoked the long river of history and 3 clones of his appeared simultaneously. They cast 3 different special abilities at their surroundings, blocking off waves of attack one after another. Kang Xuan, you're really in a hurry, Jiang Ming said. When you can't wait to let them attack, it only proves that you're feeling guilty. Sigh, frankly, you're far worse than that Heavenly Emperor, whether your wisdom or your strength. But I think I know what's happening. Since the leaving of those few Saint Lord in that world, the Heaven Court collapsed as a result of the collaboration among various forces. The new Heavenly Emperor won the position only after he overcame a series of dangerous obstacles with his endless plots, furtive means, artifice, and etc. And you are the one who is selected by the Saint Lords to be their representative only after they have built the law's net. You had no difficulties in taking up the position at all. Correspondingly, your artifice is a lot weaker. If you were to respond with a calm smile when I was revealing your secrets, people would believe that I'm a liar. But now you have made more people believe that I'm telling the truth instead. You are not qualified to be a Heavenly Emperor indeed. Hence you'll be killed on another day even if I don't show up today. Oh yes, I finally understand the reason why those 3 forces have always been ignoring you. You're really lousy. You are only relying on the law's net and taking the advantage of the power of the Saint Lord to be powerful. Every word Jiang Ming had said was forthright. He no longer held back himself in revealing all the Heavenly Emperor's secrets because the Heavenly Emperor had taken the initiative to become his adversary. Nevertheless, the Heavenly Emperor smirked. Regardless of how eloquent you have been expressing yourself, you can't change the fact that you've been making up lies. I'm just disdaining you for what you've said. There are just too many loopholes. I learned from the law's net that you've just descended to our world, not long before you killed the immortal King Go. How may you learn about so many secrets when you have descended to our world not long ago? You may have learned about the 7 Saint Lords and the law's net through the primal spirit of the immortal King Gu. But you talked about me causing the great war between the Taisian Gate and the God Clan, and you talked about me furtively subordinating Hu Sampao and dividing a wisp of my soul to seduce Yu Xin, giving birth to Yin Zhan. Verdant Emperor, have you heard of all these? The Heavenly Emperor suddenly turned to Dongfang Changqing. No, Your Majesty, I have never heard of any of these. Dongfang Changqing replied honestly. Look, how could you, a foreigner who has just descended to this world, learn all about these things when the Verdant Emperor didn't even know? It might be possible that you deduced them, but if those things were real, I can completely suppress the karma and wipe out all traces with my personal means and the capability of the law's net. In that case, not to mention that you are not a Saint Lord, even if you were a foreign Saint Lord, it is impossible to detect them in a short time. The voice of the Heavenly Emperor gradually became colder as he said, yet you know about them, isn't it ridiculous? He made a pause. His words convinced many immortal ministers, including Dongfang Changqing. They nodded their heads in agreement. They thought it was ridiculous for Jiang Ming, a newcomer, to know about the secrets that they didn't even know. You humans have a saying that people always leave traces and no person is without a shadow. The Heavenly Emperor rumbled, and his voice filled with might, reverberated in the Heavenly Palace. With the presence of the law's net, all things can be traced. When did you come, and what have you done here? All have been recorded. You were supposed to have come here to protect a girl of your human race. Her name is Ye Qingxian, a genius of the Stone Mansion. She owes the Stone Mansion a big favor. Later, when the Stone Mansion had a disaster, thousands of people had died, including Ye Qingxian's close friends. You were capable of saving them, but you didn't do so. Hence, you aren't here to help at all. Ye Qingxian is very weak, too weak to have any relationship with a foreigner like you. The most reasonable explanation would be you suddenly descended to the world and controlled someone to take it as a starting point in intervening in our world. You killed the immortal King Gu and defeated Yinjian so that you'll be invited or taken into the Heaven Court. In this case, you'll be able to give a speech of your opinion like you have just done. As for your motive, it's very easy to infer, isn't it? You wanted to create chaos in our Tiankang Great Chiliocosm so that you all foreigners could invade, right? Otherwise, how can you shuttle through the chaos with your current cultivation base? If you were not here to create chaos, why would you kill our Heaven Court's immortal king in the War of God? It's obvious that killing them wouldn't do you any good but only cause troubles after all. If you were to reach here accidentally, you should have kept low profile and acted only after you have learned about our world. You wouldn't have deliberately acted in a conspicuous manner, dividing the Heaven Court. Jiang Ming, you not only have looked down upon me and many other immortal ministers, you have highly overestimated yourself. The Heaven Emperor analyzed in a profound manner and supported his own presumption with logical explanation. Hence he managed to convince many. Nothing that you've said I'm able to refute. Jiang Ming couldn't help but smile. He was indeed incapable of refuting because he couldn't show any proof at all. He could not take out the human path record. Even if he could, no one would believe either. Believe it or not, it doesn't matter. Jiang Ming stretched himself, and the imposing aura of his three clones was already at their strongest point. The reason why I forcefully attack is to get a chance to temper myself. Come on, do you all want to attack me together or one after another? I think because we're at your heavenly palace, where the heaven court of your Tiancheng Great Chiliocosm is located, you all wouldn't besiege me, would you? After all, I can't escape at all. If you were to come forward one after another and is capable of suppressing me to the point that I can't do anything else, I'll tell you all things about my world, the method I used to come here, the Sea of Chaos, and the few methods to sanctify your Tao. What do you say? Jiang Ming said smilingly. This was his main objective. If they were to attack him simultaneously, he was incapable of killing all before the Saint Lord revealed himself. By that time, he could only detonate Tao vessels other than escaping. In this case, he wouldn't be able to temper himself. Interesting. The Heavenly Emperor couldn't help but smile. I can't figure out what you have been relying on to act arrogantly. We're here in the Heavenly Palace. With the law's net's imprisoning function and activation of the stigmata, you won't be able to escape at all. Not even a saint can. The Heavenly Emperor truly didn't understand. He couldn't see any fear in Jiang Ming's expression but only the eagerness to try, and the rising fighting spirit. In fact, he was not the only one who didn't understand. The Verdant Emperor and the other immortal ministers too didn't understand. However, those who were in the Heaven Court were all powerful with authority. They were also arrogant, hence they couldn't endure it when they were despised by Jiang Ming. Your Majesty, I'd like to request to fight with Jiang Ming. Shi Shangtian was the first one who came forward. Your request is granted, the Heavenly Emperor said. Then, with a wave, the main hall suddenly expanded into a separated realm for the battle. It was separated by dense silk thread as a result of the law's net being materialized. Meanwhile, all immortal ministers stayed within the silk threads and watched by growing themselves to 1,000 feet high. Heavenly Emperor, on the other hand, had grown up to 10,000 feet high, overseeing the battle realm. Kid, you're honored to have His Majesty to make you a battle realm, but at the same time, it's such a pity that you've overestimated yourself. Your arrogance would lead you to endless regrets. Shi Shangtian smirked. He then threw out the divine axe in his hand as he yelled, splitting starry sky. At the same time, he evoked the maximum power of the law's net he could manage to, because he knew he might not be a match for Jiang Ming, who had defeated Yin Zhan. He's at the late stage of great overarching. Jiang Ming saw through his cultivation base. He withdrew his special ability and lunged himself forward at the disappearance of his three clones. At the same time as he threw a punch, he created a scroll of civilization which hit on the divine axe, and the axe was thrown out at the impulse of force. The evolution of civilization generated an endless power of morality, suppressing Shi Shangtian. Die! Jiang Ming threw another punch which got through the law's net into Shi Shangtian's chest. The punch was incredibly strong. It was strong enough to strike down Shi Shangtian, but it was at this moment that stronger layers of law's net appeared before him. The power of the punch was weakened through these layers, hence it failed to create any destructive impact against Shi Shangtian. Kang Xuan, this isn't interesting, is it? Yang Ming looked helplessly at the Heavenly Emperor, who was sitting at the highest place in the center, and said in an icy tone, "You are the criminal here." The Heavenly Emperor replied in an icier tone. In addition to the attack that killed Hu Sampao and Bai Lu, the punch earlier had shown him how terrific Jiang Ming was. However, he was also confused. The Tao fluctuation Jiang Ming had emitted was obviously revealing his cultivation base at the Golden Immortal level. Hence, he couldn't believe that a Golden Immortal could kill a great overarching expert because of the large gap in between each level. Moreover, logically, it was impossible for a Golden Immortal to kill someone of a higher level unless he was at great overarching level, because a great overarching expert had been considered to have transcended fate. This guy is weird. As the Heavenly Emperor thought, he asked, "Do you still want to battle?" Of course. Jiang Ming was not enraged but asked, "Are you going to keep stopping like this?" "This is the Heaven Court," the Heavenly Emperor emphasized. He would allow battling here in the Heaven Court but not killing. "Really?" Jiang Ming sneered. "Heaven can preside over justice, punish evil and encourage good, and retribution is clear. Do be careful with too much accumulation of evil deeds, you might not endure the punishment later." "Nonsense," a young expert who was at the entrance reprimanded. He was armed with a golden helmet, golden armor, and held a golden great polearm. He looked dignified and majestic. It took him only 2 steps to get to the center of the hall. He paid his respect to the giant-sized Heavenly Emperor. "Your Majesty, I am Jin Gang. I heard that a naive and arrogant man has come to the Heavenly Palace to challenge all immortal generals, and he has defeated Yin Zhan. Therefore, I'm here to suppress him, to show him our might. Hence, I'd like to request your permission." "Your request is granted." The Heavenly Emperor granted permission. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Jin Gang bowed again before he turned to Jiang Ming and sneered. "I heard that you're a foreigner. You first killed an immortal king, defeated Yin Zhan, and then killed Hu Sampao and Bai Lu directly in the Heavenly Palace. You are such a ruleless and arrogant man, hence must be killed. Jin Gang, who's known as the Second War of God. The best one is not my match. Do you think you can?" Jiang Ming laughed. "How did you know that?" Jin Gang frowned, but his imposing aura remained surging as he snorted. "I lost to him in that battle merely because I wasn't focusing. Come on, let me find out how strong you are." Great polearm tyrant dominating the world. With a turn of his wrist, endless imposing rays surged out of the polearm, striking towards Jiang Ming. At the same time, he spat out a golden net, directed it to hover over Jiang Ming before it fell on him to entangle him. The net wasn't an ordinary fish net. When it fell, it formed a suppressive force that also confined Jiang Ming's surroundings. It was like a fishnet that prohibited fishes from breaking loose. Besides, Jin Gang also called up the power of the law's net to form a terrific suppression. It was the best strike he could do. "This is slightly interesting." Jiang Ming was excited. He shook, and endless frantic power surged from within his body, shattering the imprisonment of the law's net. He reached out with his left hand and evoked the infinite vessel manipulation technique. The golden net suspended in the sky shook, and its luminance was scattered in an instant, causing Jin Gang to lose control over it. Jiang Ming took the opportunity to grab hold of it and put it into the human path record. Meanwhile, he clenched his right hand into fist and punched onto the great polearm. Boom! In a sudden, the torrent produced by the clash swept out to all directions, but it was weakened by layers of law's net one after another, until it became a gentle wind. Jin Gang had to retreat. He was in disbelief as he said, "How's it possible?" Not only Jin Gang was in shock, other immortal ministers, Dongfang Changqing and even the Heavenly Emperor, were dumbfounded. They saw clearly how Jiang Ming suppressed and took over the golden net of Jin Gang with his special ability instead of an item. They were surprised particularly when they knew that the golden net was of the great overarching level, how terrific its power of imprisonment and its entanglement. They were also bewildered at the last punch of Jiang Ming encountering the great polearm. There was only a white mark left on Jiang Ming's hand. They wouldn't believe it if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes. After all, it was the attack that even Dongfang Changqing didn't dare to counteract directly. "It isn't a big deal. Come again." Jiang Ming roared and took the initiative to lung himself forward. He threw punches full of destructive power at Jin Gang, but the punches were surrounded by numerous drawings of civilization. Within the holiness was filled with killing intention. It was the killer civilization punch technique. "Here I come." Jin Gang was in a state of frenzy. However, it was obvious that he no longer was that domineering because of his fear. As the great polearm turned, it was radiating an intimidating aura. At the same time, a clock appeared hovering above him, rang out on its own. Dong! 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 The sound of the clock was oppressive because it directly hit one's mind. As the vibration of the sound reverberated to all directions, it was weakened by layer after layer of law's net without causing any impact to the onlookers. Jiang Ming was not affected either. He had evoked the 9-level stellar tower in his mind, which radiated yellowish luminance that protected his soul and mind. It was a type of spiritual special ability. Even if he had no such a spiritual special ability, he wouldn't be affected too because of the protection from his inner world. Jiang Ming crashed the wave of sound, scattered the power of Law's net's layers, and forcefully repulsed the great polearm. It even burst the two arms of Jin Gang, causing him to spurt blood. He was in great shock. Die! Jiang Ming didn't stop there. He was filled with killing intention and he threw his invincible punches at Jin Gang. It was at this time that a total of 49 layers of Golden Law's net appeared before Jin Gang, blocking off the attack. What a defense! Jiang Ming shifted his attention to the Heavenly Emperor. What an awesome Law's net established by the 7 Saint Lords. The Law's net looks akin to a ray formation and special abilities. Kang Xuan, since you're very skillful in utilizing the Law's net, I'm afraid that your combat power is up to the level of a Saint Lord here in this main hall. This is to deal with foreigners like you, Kang Xuan said indifferently. Do you want to continue the battle or admit defeat? Jiang Ming guffawed. It seems like I have won 2 consecutive battles. The fact that you weren't able to break through the Law's net just now has destined your fate. Hence, what's the point of us continuing? Kang Xuan asked. Are you sure you want to continue? Your Majesty, let us do it. Before Jiang Ming could answer, 3 experts in 3 different forms walked in from the entrance. Each and every one of them had an aura as deep as the abyss. Their aura was terrifyingly profound, far stronger than Jin Gang. All 3 of them were venerates from the God clan. As Jiang Ming saw them, he couldn't help but laugh. He thought, here comes my opponents. I wonder if Kang Xuan would stop me from killing them. Ming knew that these 3 were the venerates from the God clan. They were Scorpion 1,000 Miles, Bear Tyrant, and Mo He. Their names were very personal. Scorpion 1,000 Miles was the Scorpion Monarch. He was in the initial stage of the quasi-sage realm. He was strong with terrific innate talent, vicious and arrogant. Bear Tyrant was the great monarch of the tyrannical blood barbarian bear, also the ancestor of the bear. His bloodline was even stronger, especially with his brute force. He was capable of moving mountains and reclaiming seas. He was in the middle stage of the quasi-sage realm. Mo He was a Qilin, the remnant of the ancestral Qilin clan. He was of the later stage of the quasi-sage realm. They are all of the demon clan, but they are actually known as the God clan here. Jiang Ming was rendered speechless. Hu Sanpao, who had been killed earlier, was a tiger demon. Fuck. These demons became a noble clan in another place. Through their status, Jiang Ming also learned about some of their secrets. For example, the bird clan with declining power, the dragon clan that dominated the ocean, etc., were far inferior to the God clan dominated by terrestrial beasts. In fact, the God clan was one of the powerful forces after the Heaven Court. The arrival of the 3 was followed by the arrival of a dozen strong existences. After they paid their respects to the Heavenly Emperor, some merged into the Law's net, while others were merely standing in different corners of the hall. Obviously, those who didn't merge with the Law's net were not members of the Immortal Ministers. The Heavenly Emperor had to treat many of them with respect, hence, it revealed their identities as someone powerful or with a powerful background. Taoist Scorpion, do you really want to join the battle? Kang Xuan asked for assurance. This brat is arrogant and presumptuous, despising all of us in this Tianchang Great Chiliocosm. Hence, it's a shame to us. Moreover, although Hu Sanpao was a warrior of the Heaven Court, he is a member of our God clan. Since he has killed an expert of our clan, we definitely have to take revenge for him. Repaying animosity with animosity and repaying kindness with kindness is our objective. Therefore, I beg your majesty to grant my request, Scorpion 1,000 Miles said in a sonorous voice. While bowing his head to the emperor, his tone was also somewhat tough. Granted, the Heavenly Emperor naturally wouldn't disagree. Thank you, your majesty. Scorpion 1,000 Miles clasped his hands. Then, he turned to Jiang Ming, looking at him with his dark eyes filled with cruelty. He used his lips filled with bloody aura to demand, tell me all about the Sea of Chaos and I'll make sure you die without much pain. Otherwise, I'll swallow you, imprison your primal spirit, and refine you for millions and millions of years so that you'll be in great agony. A mere scorpion actually acts so arrogantly in the main hall of the Heavenly Palace. Heavenly Emperor, you're so lousy indeed. Jiang Ming shook his head as he sneered. In many great Chiliocosms, they are the demon clan, the beasts, and the barbarians. They are disposable, lowly creatures slaughtered by thousands of races and the food on the plate. But it's so ridiculous to know that they are being known as the God clan here. Fuck you. Scorpion 1,000 Miles was furious. The long sword in his hand radiated gloomy radiance, and a bloody aura permeated the air. Obviously, it was the poisonous mist. Both the Bear Tyrant and Mo He had killing intent flashing across their faces before disappearing at their control. The other experts were surprised by the courage of Jiang Ming, who dared arrogantly despise the God Clan's 3 venerates, wondering if Jiang Ming wanted to commit suicide. Dongfang Changqing furtively sighed as he thought, why does Taoist Jiang Ming act so arrogantly when he is not someone like this? Hold on a minute. Jiang Ming waved to stop Scorpion 1,000 Miles from attacking. Then, he turned to the Heavenly Emperor. Kang Xuan, he isn't a member of your heaven court. Would you save him when he loses? Through the human path record, Jiang Ming had learned that Kang Xuan wanted to watch their battle, two evenly matched opponents. Kang Xuan could take this opportunity to find out how strong Jiang Ming was, and he wouldn't save Scorpion Thousand Miles if he were to lose the battle because it was an opportunity to weaken the power of the God Clan. As for the three venerates, they had their own agendas as well. They were here to take the opportunity to kill Jiang Ming in the name of taking vengeance for Hu Sampao. In this way, they not only further increased their God Clan's prestige, but they could also weaken the majesty of the Heaven Court, as they were the ones who resolved the Heaven Court's trouble when the foreigner came creating chaos in the Heaven Court. Because Jiang Ming had learned about their agendas, he brought them out so that he could kill them without being stopped. Kang Xuan acted as if he was pondering. On the other hand, Scorpion Thousand Miles guffawed. You want to kill me? You've been overestimating yourself. Your Majesty, this is the battle of my God Clan. Hence, please don't intervene. Alright, Kang Xuan frowned as he agreed. He looked like he was rather unhappy. In the battle area, all onlookers, particularly the experts from the Tai Xuan Gate and the Sacred Sect, had rather sophisticated thoughts. Regardless of the results, their conflicts would tend to intensify. This is interesting. Jiang Ming laughed. Do you want to fight with me all together or one after another? Do we have to join hands to kill you? Jiang Ming, you've been overestimating yourself, roared Scorpion Thousand Miles. His roar broke numerous lines of the law's net. He wielded his long sword, and black-colored mist permeated over rapidly. He moved and fused into the mist. Great purifying technique. Jiang Ming incanted while making hand seals. A golden light lighted the surroundings and melted the black mist diffusing through the air. It was as if the scorching heat of sunlight was melting the snowflakes. The great purifying technique was the result of the fusion of the power of light, scorching sun, thunder, etc. It specialized in restraining demonic power. Based on Jiang Ming's cultivation realm, he couldn't cast a potent power with merely the manipulation method, hence the fusion of various powers was the way to go. What an amazing special ability. The moment Scorpion Thousand Miles' voice rang out, his long sword had got to Jiang Ming. It was radiating with gloomy radiance, like the curse from hell. At the tip of the sword had gathered a layer of black luminance. Jiang Ming thought of hitting it with his bare punch but suddenly had an inexplicable bad feeling. Hence he had a glove appear on his fist, blocking the sword tip in a hurry. He also retreated. When Jiang Ming looked at the glove, he saw a black dot on the glove's luminance, which was corroding the power of the Gist glove. When carefully observed, Jiang Ming found out that the little black dot was formed by numerous little scorpions. They were doing their very best in tearing and destroying the defensive power of the glove. Brat, you actually block off my strike, exclaimed Scorpion Thousand Miles. Immediately following that, he sneered. Let's see how many times you can block off my attacks. Venerate Law Domain appear. Invisible waves pushed their way through space and hovered over a 1,000-mile area in an instant. The domain also hovered over Jiang Ming. Your combat power is strong, but your cultivation base is too low, so I'll be suppressing your cultivation base. Scorpion Thousand Miles smirked. This common special ability of the Venerate is a peerless means to you. It was a domain. Amidst the waves was a great amount of black mist made up of the little poisonous scorpions formed by evoking the power of orders. Each of them was of the size of a cell and grouped together to become the black mist. When observed with divine eyes, their number was large, probably millions and millions of them. The clusters were so dense that they would make people experience trypophobia. Currently, they were all roaring and making their way toward Jiang Ming. The terrifying Venerate Law Domain is formed by conjuring personal Tao in the Venerate Domain and merging it with laws of heaven and earth. Jiang Ming had seen such a domain before, yet he continued looking very gloomy. He was capable of killing a great overarching golden immortal easily, but other than a few special abilities he was not confident in confronting a Venerate at all, particularly now that he was under the watch of many experts. Peerless means? Jiang Ming tittered. I think you misunderstood the meaning of peerless means. Oh, why do you say that? Scorpion Thousand Miles was no longer rushing to attack. To me, the grade of this peerless means of yours is too low. Even though my cultivation base is far lower than yours, the special ability I've been comprehending is beyond your imagination. As Jiang Ming spoke, a long, majestic river appeared beneath his feet. It was a river that evoked history, communicating the past, suppressing the present, and deducing the future. The moment when the long river of history appeared, 3 of his clones appeared too. What do you think about this special ability of mine? Jiang Ming asked as he laughed. This Scorpion Thousand Miles was shocked looking at it. He was, after all, a Venerate. Hence, with his high cultivation base, he was able to see through its intrinsic quality. The long river seems real and illusory, but it condenses the power of many civilizations, communicates the past and the future, accommodates all laws, and includes the heavens. Scorpion Thousand Miles exclaimed, what a terrific special ability. It seems to accommodate millions of laws within one river. Did you deduce this special ability yourself? No, I can't believe that because it's impossible. What a frog at the bottom of a well, Jiang Ming laughed. So what if you are strong within a world? You can't go past the barriers of your world, hence it is difficult for you to truly transcend. Scorpion Thousand Miles didn't care about the despisal he received from Jiang Ming. He asked with excitement instead. Transcendence? What is transcendence? The saint? The saint is considered to have transcended. Jiang Ming said, you have limited potential. Achieving the venerate realm has completely consumed your foundation. It's impossible for you to go further. Hence, don't think about becoming a saint. Oh yes, since you've become my enemy today, it's destined that you no longer have a future. It'd be a waste of my energy to explain further. Since you want to die faster as you wish, Scorpion Thousand Miles was filled with killing intent. His long sword emitted black luminance, caused the black mist in the law domain to boil, and turned the domain into total darkness. Meanwhile, he merged into it as well. Just a small trick, Yang Ming said sonorously and with disdain. He didn't move at all while standing on the long river. Killer Civilization Punch Technique. It accommodates all things in the past and carries all powers that existed to transform into the strongest killer punch. The past body burst the void with the punch and evoked various Tao of civilization in a more refined way. The punch also crushed into the black mist instantly, but the past body himself had been corroded too. Entombing Sky Illusion Palm, burying the future body also cast his attack, but the black mist remained. It only turned into an illusionary form, which appeared to be strange. Day Destruction. The present body jumped and pointed to his left. A long sword appeared from that direction. It was Scorpion Thousand Miles who had merged into the black mist. He was preparing to kill Jiang Ming at that moment, and he had not thought he would be discovered. What a good method indeed. But how can a mere clone deal with me? Die. Scorpion Thousand Miles smirked. His power surged out, fusing into his own poison. The tip of his sword instantly appeared right on the fingertip of the present body. The present body exploded. The long sword was also blasted out. The terrifying power transmitted to the right arm of the Scorpion Thousand Miles and scattered it directly. I could see the extreme destruction in that finger just now. Scorpion Thousand Miles was extraordinarily astounded. At the same time, a scorpion tail appeared on his back. The sharp spike twisted the void, inexplicably appeared right behind Jiang Ming and stabbed directly at the back of his head. It was the attack of his main body. The attack was akin to the strike of a quasi-sage weapon. Moreover, with his own poison contained within the attack, it would kill even a quasi-sage. However, Scorpion Thousand Miles suddenly stiffened at this moment. He found out that the other two clones of Jiang Ming were casting an imprisonment technique on him. The power was about to surge out of his body, but he was horrified. How is it possible? Scorpion Thousand Miles struggled to break through the imprisonment. As soon as he released a sound through his soul, he had been pointed directly at the back of his head, which pierced through his skull and destroyed his primal spirit. It was the present body who did that. When the present body exploded, Jiang Ming immediately conjured another. In fact, Jiang Ming was capable of conjuring clones one after another, provided his main body was still alive and his special ability was still being activated. If Scorpion Thousand Miles knew that, he might be able to resist. However, because he was arrogant and had never seen such a special ability before, he was killed on the spot. The black mist dispersed, revealing the corpse had been transformed into a black-colored scorpion, as giant as a hill. It was its main body. Thousand Miles. Scorpion. Both the bear tyrant and Mo Hei screamed simultaneously. They were filled with disbelief too. They couldn't believe that Scorpion Thousand Miles would die just like that. Scorpion Thousand Miles was, after all, the elder of their god clan, the old monarch of the Scorpion clan. He was so strong, particularly his tail and his poison were something even they were afraid of. Yet Scorpion Thousand Miles was killed like that. Scorpion Thousand Miles was a venerate. Usually the battle between the venerates would take a few years, even up to a few hundred years. Yet, it might still be difficult to distinguish the winner, let alone kill the other party. However, the death of Scorpion Thousand Miles was too sudden, straightforward, and fast, so much so that none of the onlookers could react. In fact, the bear tyrant and Mo Hei were not the only two shocked. Even the Heavenly Emperor and all other onlookers were terrified too. He is capable of killing a venerate. Kang Xuan was shocked as he spoke to himself. And this special ability of his not only evoked the past, present, and future bodies that include the universe, but each clone can cast a terrific special ability. Based on my experience, this special ability is no weaker than the Holy Tao technique. This is unbelievable. This kid should not be someone with a simple background. But this is our territory. Regardless of his background, he'll have to be submissive. Jiang Ming naturally didn't know the Heavenly Emperor's current thoughts. Even if he did, he wouldn't mind. Jiang Ming kept the corpse of Scorpion Thousand Miles and his weapons with a wave. He believed that being the Scorpion Monarch, Scorpion Thousand Miles must be delicious. Stop it, the bear tyrant roared. How dare you keep Scorpion Thousand Miles' body after killing him? You're such a bully, I must kill you today. Universe Cloth, go. As he pointed, a yellow cloth flew out and got bigger as it flew to the wind. Then, it hovered over Jiang Ming and imprisoned the void beneath it. It was an imprisonment day vessel. It even imprisoned the three clones. The bear tyrant had a giant hammer in his hand and hammered directly on the cloth. He wanted to utilize the collision force between the two Dao vessels to kill Jiang Ming. This was what he was good at. It's good to use this cloth as the steamboat's pot. Jiang Ming maintained his smile. The future body lifted his hand when the cloth was about to drop on Jiang Ming. Following that, the cloth trembled, splashing out its divine luminance and losing its might. It was because the future body had evoked the infinite vessel manipulation technique. As Jiang Ming grabbed and pulled, the cloth fused into the long river beneath him and disappeared. He transferred it into the human path record to be suppressed. Fortunately, it was because the cloth was near to him and was merely a normal quasi-sage weapon. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that easy for Jiang Ming to suppress it. Meanwhile, both his past body and present body lunged themselves toward the bear tyrant and fought with him. But they were, after all, merely clones. Hence, they could barely resist the bear tyrant. The future body joined in the battle too. With him joining, the battle had become very intense. The clones in particular could cast various special abilities. They had cast millions of different special abilities in just a few seconds, and this stunned many onlookers. The key point was that these special abilities were all superb. Hence, if the bear tyrant were of the same level as Jiang Ming, he would have been killed. The pressure given is still insufficient. Jiang Ming frowned. He wanted to utilize his match to temper his infinite transcendence technique and improve it further. Unfortunately, the bear tyrant was still too weak for him. There is still Mo He, huh? As Jiang Ming pondered, another two clones appeared beside him. They were conjured with mana. The moment they appeared, they cast a space-time ceiling at the bear tyrant, causing Mo He, who had been on guard, to be shocked. He roared, lunged himself toward the three clones, and solved the crisis of the bear tyrant. Got it? Jiang Ming smiled. Then, he looked around and thought, I'll bury all of you here when I improve further. I want to find out if I'm capable of turning the heaven court upside down on my own. The best is to lure the saint of this world out, so that I can identify how strong a saint is. Jiang Ming was overjoyed with Mo He's intervention. His three clones started to bombard the opponent with a barrage of attacks. On the other hand, he stood on the long river of history and watched as the battle progressed. Apart from keeping a small part of his concentration to be vigilant of his surroundings, his concentration was completely integrated into the three clones as he frantically fought Mo He and the bear tyrant. These two were, after all, experts of the quasi-sage realm, with one being in the middle stage and the other in the later stage. Armed with peerless Dao weapons, powerful bloodlines, and overwhelming special abilities, they weren't easy to deal with. It didn't take long before the three incarnations were killed one after another. However, a clone was after all merely a clone. As long as the main body did not move and remained in the state of constantly evoking the special ability, more clones could be conjured continuously, forcing the two venerates to be entangled in the fight. At first, the onlookers only sighed at the overwhelming power of Jiang Ming's special ability. However, as the clones were continuously taken down, their faces of confusion were slowly taken over by shock. Your Majesty, are you able to see through him? Dongfang Changqing conversed with the Heavenly Emperor telepathically. His mana pool seems to be endless. Kang Xuan responded, this shouldn't be possible. It's not hard to see from the Dao fluctuations that permeate his whole body that he hasn't even reached the realm of Tai, let alone the great overarching golden immortal. How can he have such a terrifying mana pool? How can he have such monstrous combat power? This is just unbelievable. He's really of the golden immortal realm. Dongfang Chengqing exclaimed, I can see it too, but I just can't believe it. No matter how strong a golden immortal is, the mana of the immortal realm is limited. Yet, what he's showing is just difficult to understand. Putting this aside, what about his special abilities? His three clones, with one communicating with the past, another interpreting future, while the third suppressing the present. These three incarnations use the long river that has been conjured below his feet as their core, but are still immensely powerful. To think that they can actually entangle two venerates. As long as the main body remains, his clones won't have to worry about anything. Kang Xuan remarked and continued. The Dao of bodies of three lifetimes that he evoked was originally an unparalleled special ability to begin with. However, each of Jiang Ming's clones has supreme special abilities that are compatible with his own Dao. That is even more terrifying. Your Majesty, may I take a guess? Tell me, could he be from the legendary Sea of Chaos? The Sea of Chaos? Yes. How could he descend into our world if he weren't from the Sea of Chaos? If he weren't from the Sea of Chaos, how could he have such a terrifying accumulation of mana? If he weren't from the Sea of Chaos, how could his physical body be as terrifying as the top-grade Dao vessels or even the supreme-grade Dao vessels? Also, those special abilities that he evokes at will in the battle seem to be directly leading toward the great Dao. However, he managed to evoke more than 10,000 kinds of them. How incredible is this? From the way you interpreted it, this seems to be a reasonable explanation. Only such a place can nurture a monster of such caliber. A genius that shatters common sense and exceeds cognition. But what is his purpose here? For training? Maybe so. After some analysis of the situation, the two got a hold of the most logical explanation of Jiang Ming's capability. At that moment, the situation changed. Just when the past body was killed through a sudden explosion, the bear tyrant entangled the present body and the future body, allowing Mo He to sacrifice an orb, emitting a yellow luminance as he volleyed it to the top of Jiang Ming's head. Its luminance felt heavy and trailing as it seemed to condense the power of 10,000 sacred mountains. When it fell upon him, Jiang Ming's body sank as the long river of history under his feet set off endless waves. Infinite vessel manipulation technique. Seemingly to have expected all this to happen, Jiang Ming raised his left hand and cast a peerless special ability towards the sky. The luminance of the orb was slightly scattered but still continued to fall. Jiang Ming's pupils shrank as he quickly turned his palm into a fist and bombarded right back at the luminance. Boom! With a loud bang, Jiang Ming was slammed down from the air. There were even crackling sounds coming from his arm. If he hadn't weakened the attack with the gloves of the war god and the Venerate-level defensive armor that he was wearing, this blow would have surely blown off his entire arm. He might have even been bombarded to death from the attack. However, he was also completely released from the state of the infinite transcendence technique, causing his present body and future body to disappear immediately. Die. The bear tyrant, who was already raging in a fury, seized the opportunity. As the divine hammer in his hands finished charging itself with supreme energy, he evoked the chaotic divine hammer technique. Such a blow from this attack could even destroy the world. Die! Mo He, who was also enraged, sacrificed another 2 orbs again. The 2 additional orbs were actually attracted to the one just now, which allowed the Tao connection to be established, leading to the continuous rise of accumulated power. It seemed that the hall conjured by the Heavenly Emperor from the Heavenly Palace main hall wasn't able to withstand such a force. Even the threads of the law's net kept breaking apart. As the Heavenly Emperor casually waved his hand to suppress the force, the law's net solidified itself, stabilizing the restless battlefield. On the other hand, Jiang Ming's pupils shrank. He opened his mouth, spewed out 3 great overarching Tao vessels, and immediately detonated all 3 without hesitation. Boom! The destructive torrent erupted instantly, resisting and dispersing the attacks from the bear tyrant and Mo He. He also took the chance to retreat into the distance while his body was covered with luminance, barely blocking the explosion's aftermath. The Heavenly Emperor, however, stood up suddenly as he waved his hands, forcibly suppressing the battlefield space so that the explosion's ripple would not spread throughout the place. His face was filled with shock. He wasn't the only one left in shock. Dongfang, Changqing, and the others who had just witnessed such a scene were also shocked. They initially thought that Jiang Ming would definitely be killed under the combination of attack by the bear tyrant and Mo He. Who would have thought that he would counter the attack as he did? To be able to detonate great overarching Tao vessels, 3 pieces at a time, and even doing it in an instant. What kind of special ability is this? The Heavenly Emperor muttered to himself with a solemn expression. In an instant, various thoughts ran through his mind. What if there were 10 Tao vessels instead of 3? Would the Heavenly Palace be able to withstand such an attack? What if a quasi-sage weapon replaced it? Just the thought brought chills down his spine. However, he also speculated that detonating Tao vessels would probably take a great toll on him. Mo He withstood the aftermath of the destruction as he looked at Jiang Ming and asked, "You actually detonated the great overarching Tao vessel? How did you do it?" The bear tyrant's eyes were blood red. Even his killing intent was starting to materialize. He was almost killed just now. How could he not be as angry as he was? After all, the little bastard in front of him was merely a feeble ant in his eyes that he could crush to death at will. Who would have thought that from the few exchanges in battle, he would have been killed if it weren't for Mo He's help? For the bear tyrant, it was a great disgrace. He had joined forces with Mo He but was actually entangled by Jiang Ming's clones? How incredible was that? After the two joined forces, they seized an opportunity to destroy Jiang Ming with a fatal blow directly. There was even a chance for them to kill a heavenly emperor with such an attack. However, what was the result? He got half his body blown up instead and almost even lost his life. God damn it. What disgraceful day it had become. However, the bear tyrant didn't rush in to attack but instead listened to Jiang Ming's answer. He wanted to know what special means he had to be able to detonate even Tao vessels. "It's very easy to do so," replied Jiang Ming. Looking at the 3 orbs suspended over the bear tyrant's head, all 3 of them were gleaming with a dark yellow luminance, condensing into a boundless sense of heaviness. If they hit the ground, they would literally smash through the ground. Even the universe might not be able to withstand their weight. The 3 orbs are all of quasi-sage Tao vessels. They are of very high quality and look almost like they were one body to begin with. Jiang Ming asked, "Could it be that these are inheritance items?" A sullen expression flashed through Mo He's face. Jiang Ming suddenly had a general understanding of it. Ming knew of the origin of the other party's 3 orbs. In ancient times, although Kirans were considered rare, there were quite a few of them around. There were 9 of them who were particularly the most powerful and terrifying of all. These 9 Kirins were also known as the 9 ancestors of the Kirin, the 9 emperors of the earth. As they fought in the battles of the Holy Tao, 3 of them had fallen. Later on, the Saint Lords from the outside world invaded, causing yet another 4 of them to fall. In the end, only 2 of them remained. One was the Emperor of the God Clan, while the other was him. As for the 3 orbs, one was the weapon of enlightenment that he tempered himself, while the other 2 were the 2 left over after the fall of the former Kirin ancestor. After acquiring the other 2 orbs, he had been tempering them for hundreds of millions of years, finally turning them into his own Tao weapon. These 3 orbs had become a set, being able to be on the offensive and defensive state at the same time. When Mo He saw Jiang Ming controlling the Bear Tyrant's cover, he knew that this foreigner was able to influence or even control other people's Tao weapons. As such, he was extra vigilant and even thought of a countermeasure, which was to use the force of attraction between the 3 Kirin orbs to block off the technique. Sure enough, it worked. This is a gift from my brothers. Mo He nodded and then asked a question in return. How were you able to detonate the great overarching Tao vessels? By using a special ability. Jiang Ming gave a simple answer, but couldn't help and sighed. I wanted to use the both of you to hone my transcendence technique so that my bodies of 3 lifetimes could improve further. Sadly, you didn't follow the normal script. In fact, he was trying to use the abilities of the 2 to see if he could fuse the bodies of 3 lifetimes into one. Unfortunately, he couldn't do so with his current abilities. His mission's objective was a failure. Script, the Bear Tyrant was furious. To treat the both of us as a whetstone to hone yourself who gave you such confidence. Didn't I almost kill you just now? Jiang Ming responded with a smile. The Bear Tyrant's breath stagnated upon hearing the reply. Jiang Ming no longer paid attention to him, but looked at the Heavenly Emperor and muttered indifferently with a lack of interest. Fellow Taoist Kang Xuan, what do you think if we end this farce now? And Mo He directly intervened before Kang Xuan could even speak. You first killed Hu Sanpao and then Scorpion Thousand Miles, who were both of our God clan. Do you think you can still walk away? I want to leave. Who can even stop me? Jiang Ming waved his hand, and 10 great overarching Tao weapons suddenly appeared in front of him. Mo He's expression suddenly turned ugly. You bastard, you are so unruly, the Bear Tyrant yelled. I won't believe that you can detonate them all at the same time. If you detonate all of them, the damaged soul imprint caused by the detonation of your own Tao vessels might turn you into an idiot right there and then. I don't believe he can do it either. An old man with red hair and red beard clad in a red robe walked out of the crowd. He stroked his beard with a cheerful smile on his face while looking at Jiang Ming. Fellow Taoist, this is the Heaven Court. How is it a place where you can come and leave as you please? What's more, you even beheaded our heavenly officials here in the presence of His Majesty. You're already trampling on the Heaven Court's face with dirt. If you are allowed to leave, the Heaven Court's majesty will also be lost in one day. Besides, this is Heaven Court. Even if you could detonate all of them, can you really threaten us? You underestimate your majesty, the law's net, and the Heaven Court too much. The old man was relatively sluggish and slow. However, the remark that he just made not only blocked Jiang Ming from any further explanation but also completely cut off the possibility of the Heavenly Emperor recruiting Jiang Ming onto his side. 2 experts walked out from behind him as they stood by his side. Great Monarch Hong Yun. Jiang Ming looked at the other party with a strange expression on his face. This person was of the sacred sect. He initially gained his Tao from the first red cloud of the world, establishing himself with a deep cultivation foundation. He was different from others of the sacred sect because he had a wide range of contacts throughout. When he learned that Bai Lu was killed and discovered about the situation here, he took the initiative to come forth. The 2 beside him were also from the sacred sect and were both venerates. Looking at him, Jiang Ming remembered another legendary great monarch Hong Yun who also acquired his Tao from the red cloud. Such a warm and kind smile that makes people unconsciously feel intimate with them. It seems that this is also a wise old man. As Jiang Ming thought about it, he looked over at the Heavenly Emperor and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist Xing Juin, you can see that neither Mo He and the Bear Tyrant of the God Clan nor the great monarch Hong Yun of the sacred sect will take you seriously. They have long been self-reliant and wanted independence. Now they are both attacking the Heaven Court today to promote their prestige as their first step. Why don't we join forces and keep them all here? Mo He's pupils suddenly shrank. Great monarch Hong Yun's smile did not change the slightest, but a murderous intent flashed through his eyes. Dongfang Changqing had a melancholy expression on his face. The other experts all had different expressions on their faces. The Heavenly Emperor's expression, however, remained the same. He merely muttered, Jiang Ming, you don't have to try and stir us up anymore. You won't be able to walk away today. However, I will allow you all to settle your grievances first. I'll be handing over the battlefield to you. Jiang Ming was delighted upon hearing so. This Kang Xuan seemed to be very shrewd by allowing them to fight and was planning to take this opportunity to weaken both sides. However, what was the reality? The majesty of Heaven Court was deteriorating. After all, this here was the Heavenly Court. How can he, as the Heavenly Emperor, be just a spectator? Wasn't this just pulling on people's legs? Haha, great. Jiang Ming laughed out loud in response. He then looked at Mo He and Great Monarch Hong Yun. I'll give the both of you one last chance. Just leave. Leave? God damn it. Do you really think you can threaten us? Die. The bear tyrant couldn't bear it any longer. Now that he saw the experts of the sacred sect standing up to Jiang Ming, there was no hesitation in his mind. The giant hammer in his hand was directly evoked. As the hammer was volleyed into the air, it suddenly turned into a monstrous size before bombarding down onto Jiang Ming that was a venerate-level Dao weapon. Its power was overwhelmingly terrifying to begin with. Even Jiang Ming felt the terrifying pressure. He was confident that he could stop the attack, but what would he be able to do next? The experts such as Mo He and Great Monarch Hong Yun were still staring down at him, waiting for a chance to pounce. Even Yin Zhan, who was watching the battle, was eager to try his hands on Jiang Ming. He wanted to beat the underdog, but at the same time his eyes glanced at the Heavenly Emperor from time to time, yearning to ask, "Are you really my father?" Unfortunately, it wasn't a good time to ask such a question in such critical moments. Jiang Ming sighed faintly, sent a punch towards the top of his head, barely resisting the opponent's blow, and said, "I can travel through chaos to descend to this realm, which meant that I have supreme means and methods. I killed the immortal king of the heaven court but still dared to come forth into the heavenly palace. These show that I have absolute confidence. Can't you see it? Do not. You saw it. However, the things I possess were too valuable to all of you. Bodies of 3 lifetimes, the infinite vessel manipulation technique, the method of descending into great chiliocosms, the situation of the sea of chaos. Alas, desires. It's the thing that causes people to lose their sanity the easiest." Jiang Ming sighed again and again. He realized that he liked to lament on things more and more. You are too confident, and the result of overwhelming self-confidence is death. Yin Zhan finally couldn't help himself, and said, "This is the heaven court, the core of the law's net. Even a saint lord that descends here would be trapped, let alone you. Jiang Ming, today marks your death. Is that so?" Jiang Ming smiled and looked over at him with a weird smile on his face. "Would you like to know who your biological father is? Do you want to know how your mother was tricked to death by your biological father?" Yin Zhan's eyes widened and erupted with boundless killing intent. He then looked over at the Heavenly Emperor. The Heavenly Emperor was quite baffled. Never could he have imagined how Jiang Ming knew what happened back then. That was a secret among the secrets. It was exactly as what he had remarked. If he had the intention of hiding the secret, no one except the Saint Lord in the world would be able to find out. There was absolutely no one else. However, this young man of the human race who had just descended to his realm was able to expose his secret to its core. As if that was not all, the key thing was that his son was right by his side. Kang Xuan looked over at his son. Admitting if he was his father was a different matter. The important thing was that the death of his son's mother was indeed driven by him back then. This was a fact. Deny the accusation? It was difficult for him to do so when faced with his son's gaze. "Master, are you really my father?" Yin Zhan's tone was a little hoarse. In the battlefield where the Heaven Court main hall was conjured, it was extremely quiet and silent for a brief while. It was supposed to be an earth-shattering battle, yet who would have known that it would evolve to such ethical kinship of recognition? However, no one dared to laugh. Conversely, they even had an extremely serious expression on their faces. Many lowered their heads to count the ants on the ground, while some others looked up at the fluttering white clouds as if they didn't hear them. God damn it. Ants? Fluttering clouds? Who would even dare to see the Heavenly Emperor as a joke? Even Mo He, the bear tyrant, and Great Monarch Hong Yun, who were oozing with murderous intent, were silent. They were also paying attention to the Heavenly Emperor to see how he would answer Yin Zhan. If he was to admit to it, this would mean that this Heavenly Emperor was really scheming on the sacred sect, the God Clan, and the Tai Xuan Gate. What if he was to deny it? However, looking at the Heavenly Emperor's expression, he seemed to have acquiesced to it. "Kang Xuan, don't make me look down on you." Jiang Ming's voice suddenly erupted, breaking the silent battlefield. He laughed and said, "Now that you're already at such a level of cultivation, plotting for the unification of the heavens, scheming for the saint position is a matter of course. No one can blame you for them. A scheme is a scheme. It's fine if no one knew about it. However, if they're spilled and you still deny it, you'll be trampling on your own identity and even lose your own temperament. Perhaps such a thing might even leave a scar deep in your heart. If so, how can you still ascend to the saint position in the future? It would be impossible." Dongfang Changqing, who was watching silently, was a little surprised. This kid was really malicious. With just a few words, he sealed the Heavenly Emperor's way of escaping. If the Heavenly Emperor were to deny the accusation, there might be an obstruction in his mind toward his path of Tao. Moreover, to have denied it in front of such a large audience, it might really leave a scar on the temperament of his mind. How would he be able to step into Saint Tao in the future? What if he was to admit to the accusation? He would definitely be faced with hostility from the Tai Xuan Gate, the Sacred Sect, and the God Clan. the influence of the Heaven Court would form cracks and deviation for sure. Although they won't be opposing the Heaven Court openly, the Heavenly Emperor's decree from then on would be akin to a blank sheet of paper. I admired him quite a bit. However, sigh, he is completely on the opposite side of the Heaven Court, and he is also a person from the outer realm. If he can't be an ally and wants to disrupt our world, he is destined to be an enemy. Dongfang Changqing sighed in his heart. As a person who had reached such a stage of cultivation, he had already seen through most of the trivial matters of the world. He would kill even his own disciples if he needed to, let alone the admiration towards someone. Yin Zhan's expression was the most complicated. God damn it, I'm a great overarching golden immortal, for crying out loud. Who would have thought that my biological father would appear all of a sudden, that he would be my master in name? As if that wasn't enough, what made him feel worse was that his birth seemed to have been the result of some other person's scheme towards a different objective. When he thought of this, Yin Zhan, who was always prideful and arrogant, really wanted to die right there and then. Kang Xuan stood up. His incomparably huge figure naturally evoked the boundless power of order, the power of the law's net, the power of authority, and the invincible power emanating naturally, made even the hearts of peerless experts such as great monarch Hongyun to tremble. I don't understand, how did you know? Kang Xuan did not answer the question directly, but it was also a definite answer. You are not a Saint Lord, and you have only just descended into our chiliocosm. It is impossible for you to know about this. You shouldn't be able to know of all my plans, yet you knew everything. That shouldn't be possible. If that's the case, then there's only one possibility. Whether they are currently within our chiliocosm or on the outside of our chiliocosm, there are Saint Lords from your world who have infiltrated into ours, constantly monitoring the movements of our Tianqiang Great Chiliocosm. Now that you all feel that the time is ripe, you emerge to the surface with the intention of breaking the Heaven Court apart and lead us to fight within ourselves. Right when we are seriously damaged, you would take advantage of the situation to invade us. Isn't that right? That must be it. You're thinking too much. Also, don't you try to divert people's eyes with such words. Jiang Ming was rendered quite speechless. Do you think that my strength would even be of use if I wanted to invade a chiliocosm? Would demi-sage cultivation realm be of use? All of these are useless. Only the Saint Lords can dictate the victory or defeat of such a feat. The rest are merely incidental objects. Although the law's net is peerless, to trap a Saint Lord? You're just thinking too much. Kang Xuan, is it really so difficult to admit to your own doings? You are the Heavenly Emperor, the one who stood at the highest pinnacle of Tianqiang Great Chiliocosm, the man among men. You should just admit it if you've done so. Besides, now that you have a son, it's actually a gratifying event. You should be opening up the gates of the Heaven Court and accept all guests from all directions, to be able to identify your relatives under their witness. Can't you see how perfect that would be? God freaking damn it. Kang Xuan almost blurted out vulgar words. He was really pissed off. Fellow Taoist Mo He, fellow Taoist Hongyun, please kill this foreign bureaucrat, Kang Xuan ordered. The expression on his face became very gloomy. There seemed to be a power of destruction all around him, yearning to erupt anytime soon. The entire battlefield was extremely terrified by the suppression of his aura. Great monarch Hongyun and Mo He were rather hesitant. They saw that the Heavenly Emperor was at the verge of erupting in fury at this time. They were wondering if they were not obeying his order, will this be the end of them there and then? They eventually decided that it was better to just do it. After all, this bastard Jiang Ming really deserved to die. Right this very moment, however, Yin Zhan asked again, "You haven't answered yet, are you my father?" The tense atmosphere suddenly became chaotic. Kang Xuan's mouth seemed to even twitch a little. Damn it, I finally managed to temporarily suppress the restlessness with great difficulty by force. After suppressing Jiang Ming, I'll be able to get my hands on the secrets of the outer world and share them with the others. Maybe then, I can escape this crisis. Yet, you unfilial son, I know that you are stubborn and unbending. But can you not be so stubborn at such critical times? Yes, Kang Xuan responded. You killed my mother? Yin Zhan's complex expression froze for a moment, before his face turned gloomy. No, but she was killed by your scheme. Kang Xuan was silent this time. Should he reveal that she was killed by the sacred sect? Right that very moment, there and then, such a thing must not be said. Kang Xuan looked at the two experts standing beside great monarch Hongyun. His voice was rumbling, containing the supreme power of Tao fluctuation. Suppress him. I will personally strip his memory and show it to all of you. Great monarch Hongyun's eyes lit up and his heart skipped a beat. As for the Heavenly Emperor's scheme, it had already been pointed out and revealed. Why would he still care about it? It would be something to deal with in the future. Mo He, on the other hand, laughed. Kill. The bear tyrant was very decisive. He had already suppressed himself to the limit. After all, he had lost all his pride today. Luckily, the Heavenly Emperor also lost his pride today. This was good. Very good indeed. He made his move at the very moment he heard the promise of the Heavenly Emperor. After all, Kang Xuan also had another meaning behind his words. For the suppression of Jiang Ming and to have his memory shared, he himself would also make a move at the critical moment. They just had to suppress him. Boom! The bear tyrant evoked the divine hammer in his hand, striking down with a supreme mighty power that could even blast through the stars. However, his pupils shrank right that very moment as he couldn't help but blurt, "Jiang Ming, you are so unruly." He was not the only one. Mohei, great monarch Hongyun, Yinzhan, and even the heavenly emperor were terrified. As for the other experts, their faces were as pale as paper, overwhelmed with horror as all of them had a terrified look on their faces. "To hell with your so-called rules." Jiang Ming sneered, but remained still. A series of Dao vessels appeared around him where all of them were great overarching weapons. In addition to the previous Dao vessels he had taken out, there were 49 of them ready. These 49 great overarching Dao vessels even formed a large formation array. "Fellow Taoist, please hold on." Kang Xuan was extremely anxious as he shouted quickly and at the same time evoked the power of the law's net to form a heavy defensive barrier. Hee. Jiang Ming merely smirked. Without any hesitation, he evoked infinite vessel manipulation technique, detonating all 49 Dao vessels at the same time. Boom! Along with a deafening sound, the blast wave of the explosion drowned all things. How would the destructive might of the detonation of the 49 great overarching Dao vessels be? Jiang Ming finally witnessed it. The intensity of such power shocked him. There was even a sense of despair that loomed over his heart. If it wasn't for the privilege of consuming points as the group admin of the Supreme Pagoda chat group, he wouldn't have done such a thing and would instead have fled long ago. As for the waste of Dao vessels, they were merely some great overarching Dao vessels, not considered to be of great expense to his net worth. Since Jiang Ming began cultivating, he had barely done anything and would try to avoid them whenever he could. As for the battles in the Supreme Pagoda, they were just to pass through the levels after all. As for reality, he also wanted to keep participating in great battles and completely releasing himself from his own shackles. However, there were very few occasions that allowed him to. Now that he had descended into another chiliocosm and the shackles on himself were all gone. When would it be best to cause a scene if not now? Standing in the middle of the torrent, Jiang Ming saw the layers of the law's net's defensive barriers being destroyed. He also saw the power of the Heaven Court's great formation array evoked by Kang Xuan being destroyed. He even saw that the power of authority triggered by Kang Xuan collapsed quickly under the bombardment of the destructive torrent. Of course, he saw the bear tyrant's tragic death on the spot. Mohei evoked his 3 orbs to defend himself but was also torn apart by the eruption while his figure drowned in the divine luminance. Great monarch Hongyun was not much better himself. The immortals officials of the Heaven Court who were watching the battle and the experts who came here later all evoked their life-saving special abilities, sacrificing their supreme Dao vessels, but were all submerged in the torrent of destruction without exception. If you looked at it from the heavenly realm, you would discover that above the heavens, between the sun and the moon, space was suddenly distorted and a huge world appeared itself. Immortal luminance was flowing in the huge world, and there were sacred lands everywhere. The many palaces spread to the end of the sky, and there were even places such as the immortal medicinal garden. Such a scene was simply beyond imagination. However, many experts of the heavenly realm recognized it at first sight. This was the heavenly court. Why did it manifest itself? The drastic change in the very next moment shocked all sentient beings of the heavenly realm. To think that a torrent suddenly erupted right from the very middle of the mighty and domineering heavenly court, which later swept through the entire heaven court as well. It didn't matter whether it was the immortal palace, array formation, or even the law's net. Everything was destroyed in an instant. The whole heaven court was blown into pieces. Billions of years of accumulated resources, arrangement, wealth, billions of immortal soldiers and immortal generals were blown into ashes. The sky became distorted from the eruption as the laws collapsed. High above in the sky, it was as if 100,000 suns exploded at the same time, drowning the world in its luminance. Even the sky was also torn apart, forming countless spatial black holes as the destructive power was sucked in. All of the sentient beings on Earth were stunned by the whole ordeal. It took a long time before the torrent of bombardment gradually dissipated, followed with hundreds of millions of fragments falling from the sky, turning into meteors as they crashed in all directions. Most of these fragments, however, were sucked into the spatial torrents. The heaven court was blown up? It seems like it. It looks like it. Is it really blown up? I rubbed my eyes 3 times and shocked my primal spirit 9 times to see if I'm awake. Damn it, the heaven court has really blown up. How can that be possible? I know, right? How is that possible? That's the heaven court. It's the place with the highest number of experts and also the place with the strongest defense. There is no place in the world that is more powerful than heaven court. How could it have exploded? Who knows? But it is certain that the world is going to be in chaos. With the heaven court in ruins, there's no reason why the world wouldn't fall into chaos. What you said left me speechless. I don't care if you're speechless. What I want to know most now is why did the heaven court blow itself up, and who was behind it? Who can even destroy the heaven court? I'm afraid there's only the... Many experts on Earth had the same speculation and all their expressions changed before falling into silence. When it involved such a high cultivation level, what else could they do other than remaining silent? The Saint Lords dominated the vast sky and earth. The hundreds of millions of sentient beings were just pieces on a chessboard. They had no control over their own destiny and could only follow what's coming for them. They could only cry out in despair that their fates were up to the heavens rather than themselves. High up in the sky, a figure finally appeared from the explosion. He stood in the torrent with his body straight, and a strange power seemed to have surrounded him. The power blocked the torrents from injuring him regardless of how much the torrents raged on. In his surroundings, many figures gradually appeared, all in dire straits. Among them were the Heavenly Emperor and Yin Zhan, who were in the best state. It seemed as though they were not affected in any way. Yin Zhan was of course sheltered by the Heavenly Emperor himself. Otherwise, it would be unreasonable for him to stay alive with his level of cultivation. Dongfang Changqing was also alive. After all, he was the verdant emperor. He could control the law's net and also held a part of the power of authority. Even so, he was also in dire straits. There were about a dozen people around him. They were all the Heaven Court's warriors who were barely sheltered by him, all who were above the great overarching immortal realm. There were also 2 other Heaven Court's venerates who survived the explosion. Not only were they unable to shelter any immortal officials, they themselves were also in an extremely dire strait that even their breath were unstable. As for great monarch Hongyun, Mo He and the likes, all of them ended up dead. They were at the dead center when the Tao vessels were detonated. Unable to control the power of the law's net or mobilize the power of the Heaven Court, it was impossible for them to survive the explosion. Putting them aside, there were still a number of experts on the edge of the Heaven Court who survived, but their total number was not more than 1,000. The power from the detonation eventually dissipated completely, leaving only the howling winds raging all around. High above the sky, it was dead silent. The surviving experts had a gloomy and terrifying look on their face as they stared at Jiang Ming with immense anger, an anger that could not be put out even when they were to die. Dongfang Changqing was the same. How are you still alive? Kang Xuan finally spoke. Who was the angriest among them? It was none other than the Heavenly Emperor himself. As the Heavenly Emperor, the Heaven Court was his domain. It was his territory where most of his most loyal subordinates reside. But what of it now? Everything had gone. His anger, his rage, his fury, his madness, his resentment, all of them were suppressed by him. How would I kill myself with my own technique? Jiang Ming smiled. I told you again and again not to mess with me. There was always room for discussion. In the end, all of you still wanted to mess me up. Especially you, Kang Xuan. You still wanted to scheme on me and use me in your plan of taking over the world. How did that end up? It's a dead loss for you now. Happy now? Go mad. Ha! Kang Xuan pointed at Jiang Ming and almost cursed out loud. Fortunately, he held back as he wanted to protect his pride as the Heavenly Emperor. The extreme anger in his eyes, however, materialized as it burned through the void in front of him, creating countless holes. Now that it has come to this, I must kill you even if I didn't want to. Kang Xuan took a deep breath and suppressed the monstrous anger in him and sighed. That's right, you must be killed now. Dongfang Changqing sighed as well. He looked at Jiang Ming and said, why did you do this? Well, brother Changqing, if I don't do this in the main hall of the Heavenly Palace, are you suggesting for me to reveal my neck to be slaughtered instead? Jiang Ming said with a smile. Haish, Dongfang Changqing sighed. If it were me, I might have done the same thing without any hesitation. Yet after all this, I am still the verdant emperor of the Heaven Court. Fellow Taoist Jiang, I will be your enemy rather than a friend from now on. I have a very good impression of you, Taoist Changqing. My advice to you would be not to be my enemy. You really shouldn't. You'll die, Jiang Ming sincerely exclaimed. Dongfang Changqing was horrified upon hearing his words. The current him couldn't be more serious about Jiang Ming's remark. He began wondering whether Jiang Ming meant it and that he really had the capability to kill him. Jiang Ming was, after all, being targeted by the Heavenly Emperor. The other experts from Tai Xuan Gate, God Clan, and also the Sacred Sect were rushing over as they spoke. Now that Jiang Ming no longer had as many Tao vessels as he did, Dongfang Changqing was wondering what was the source of his confidence. Perhaps he still had other cards under his sleeves? After all this, I am still the Verdant Emperor. Dongfang Changqing was also very serious as he spoke. Fellow Taoist Jiang, detonating Tao vessels while you are still at the great overarching cultivation realm is a taboo technique and I believe should come with a great price. When you evoke the detonations, the soul imprint on the Tao vessels will also be annihilated. Those were all great overarching Tao vessels after all. To be able to refine all of them, the soul imprint left on them must have been extremely strong. To be able to detonate so many of them at the same time, it stands to reason that you wouldn't be able to bear the backlash. Yet, why do you still seem fine as though nothing has happened? He was really puzzled. Even the Heavenly Emperor himself was puzzled. Jiang Ming merely smiled. Would I be telling you that when I detonated the great overarching Tao vessels, I would be able to avoid my primal spirit from getting destroyed by using the human path record? I naturally have my own ways. As he replied, he asked a question instead. The Heaven Court was founded by the Saint Lords. Now that it has been destroyed, why doesn't the Saint Lord show himself? Dongfang Changqing fell silent. He didn't show up because I am enough to kill you. Changshuan couldn't answer either. As he waved his hand to teleport Yin Zhan over to the ends of the world, he then walked towards Yang Ming with a murderous look on his face. You brought my heaven court to ruins, shattered the backbone of my great chiliocosm, and stomped all our dignity onto the ground. Today it's either your death or mine. As he raised his hand and pointed upwards, the sky went on riot. Endless thunderclouds gathered above, turning into an eye of tribulation aiming directly at Jiang Ming. Kang Xuan's killing intent was raging unprecedentedly. Even since his birth, there had been very few instances where he had such terrifying murderous intentions. The foundation that he had been managing for hundreds of millions of years had been destroyed in just a glimpse of an eye. Moreover, that was his chance of sanctioning the way of Tao as well. Anyone would have gone crazy if they were in the same shoe as him. As he pointed into the sky started to tremble as the tens of thousands of laws were in resonance. The peerless law's net was seemingly materializing, entrapping Jiang Ming in the middle layer by layer. Right on top of Jiang Ming's head, the thunderous storm formed an eye of tribulation, heavenly punishment thunder tribulation, the judgment of good and evil, fall. Kang Xuan swiped down, as if slashing the sky and revealing the injustice. At the same time, his primal spirit vibrated, radiating with the essence of this special ability. This technique is the pinnacle of strength in Yang. It integrates the laws of heaven and earth, mobilizes the power of authority, judges the good and evil of the living beings in the world. If deemed to be of the good, not only does it bring no harm to the person, the technique will temper the person's body, strengthen the person's essence, and enhance the person's aptitude as well. As for the ones deemed evil, the destructive energy will naturally destroy the person's body, annihilating their very soul. Its power varies with the degree of evil deeds the person has committed. Jiang Ming. Schadenfreude flashed through Kang Xuan's face as he remarked, "You destroyed the heaven court and slaughtered more than 10,000 immortal officials. Your crime is of the extreme that even heaven couldn't tolerate without punishment. All the evil in the world is not enough to describe your sins. As such, this blow to you is comparable to the power of destroying a whole world in one strike." The voice reverberating from his primal spirit was so fast that it spread throughout in the blink of an eye. However, when he thought of Jiang Ming being safe from the detonation of so many great overarching Tao vessels, his heart sank. This is the law of order, the law of rules, and the law of heaven. Jiang Ming raised his head and looked at the terrifying eyes of tribulation. His heart trembled. An inexplicable thought flashed his mind. What would happen if he rushed into it and refined his body with the power of the thunder tribulation? He would become ashes. There would be absolutely no other possible outcome. To block it off with his accumulated points from the Supreme Pagoda? God damn it. He had already wasted 10,000 points already. Was there any benefit for staying here any longer? There was none. If he were to fight against the Heavenly Emperor, it would be meaningless because the other party was too strong and that he was too weak himself. Apart from self-destructing the Tao vessels, what else could he do? After all, there was still the law's net here. His opponent would have at least a demi-siege level weapon as well. Kang Xuan, I will definitely kill you when I return to this place. Looking at the power of thunder tribulation still brewing above his head and feeling the solidification of the surrounding space, Yang Ming also understood that the normal method of escaping was futile. Not only was the surrounding area sealed, even his body was locked on by the technique. He looked at Kang Xuan indifferently. Do you think you can still escape? Before Kang Xuan even finished speaking, Jiang Ming disappeared into thin air, leaving no traces behind. He's gone? Kang Xuan was bamboozled. This is the heavenly punishment thunder tribulation that has already been evoked and brewing. He was even locked on by the power of the heavens. How can he still escape? Kang Xuan was shocked. The eye of thunder tribulation also began to dissipate quickly. This meant that all traces of the target had been lost. Kang Xuan was not the only one that was soaked, so were Dongfang Changqing and all the experts who arrived. For a brief moment, they were in dead silence. Everyone. After a long time, Kang Xuan glanced at those of the Tai Xuan Gate Sacred Sect and the God Clan that rushed over and said solemnly, "The Saint Lord is in cultivation retreat, and he won't be coming out of it unless it is the last resort. But now, we are facing a powerful enemy from the outside world. Although he is merely of the feeble generations, he destroyed the Heaven Court in one blow. Moreover, he even managed to silently flee even when he was locked on by the power of heavens. This shows a fact that the opposing party has terrifying special abilities and are of great background. It is likely that he will be returning in the future, leading an army to attack our chiliocosm. I need to rebuild the Heaven Court. I also need the help of fellow Taoists." Kang Xuan cupped his hands. "The ministries are with your majesty." Dongfang Changqing was the first to make a statement. The experts of the three major forces pondered for a long time, took in various information of what had transpired, and finally nodded in agreement. Jiang Ming returned to Chuyang Peak. As he stood on the balcony and looked at the sunset, he let out a breath of relief. To go out in the early morning and return in the evening. What happened that day was quite eventful. Originally, he felt that Ye Qingxian was in danger. Upon arriving there, the stone mansion that was located over there was destroyed. He was then invited to the Heaven Court but ended up destroying the Heaven Court. I'm really a star of disaster. A strange expression flashed through Jiang Ming's face. As he looked into the sky, he saw the auction house on top of Tianyuan Sea. There were many experts who came out of it one after another. Some were happy and nervous as they turned into light streams, swiftly leaving the place right after. Some of them were gloomy as they locked onto those who initially left and went on a chase. The auction has actually ended. Jiang Ming was speechless. Senior brother, junior sister Phoenix came over and hugged his arm, swaying his arm between her two humps as she pouted. Why did you go off so long this time? I've been waiting for you and didn't even attend the auction. You have to compensate me. What sort of compensation? Senior brother, you know well how to. I don't. You do. I really don't. Then I'll teach you how. Junior sister Phoenix's eyebrows perked up. Just as she was about to sit on top of Jiang Ming like Yu on a lotus, she saw Mountain Master Tian Yuan rushing over with a shocked expression on his face. She pouted in dissatisfaction, turned her head and returned to her room. What's the matter with your junior sister today? Mountain Master Tian Yuan didn't know what happened. Brother, could it be that you two are in a fight? She's just throwing a tantrum. Just ignore her. Jiang Ming smiled, motioned for him to sit down. He brewed a pot of immortal tea, poured 2 cups, and asked, Big brother, I didn't go up into the auction house. How was it? Brother, to think that you didn't attend such a big event, this surprised me. Mountain Master Tian Yuan knew that Jiang Ming was mysterious and unpredictable. As such, he didn't ask any further questions, but smiled and said, the items auctioned are really unique. Some of them are unheard of. Some of the elixirs auctioned had unimaginable effects, and they even took out a demi-sage weapon. Unfortunately, there weren't any forces that could afford the price. He continued to slowly explain while drinking the immortal tea. For example, there was the 9 reincarnation golden pill. Once a person consumed the pill, it would allow the person to directly reach the great overarching realm, but the person could never improve further after that. His cultivation realm would stop there for the rest of his life and would be the weakest great overarching golden immortal at that. Even so, it made many experts go crazy for it. There was also the enslaved Bai Ju. Although he was a demon venerate, he was still placed in auction and was bought off by the vermilion bird with great hatred. The most special item of all was a set of 9 9-to-1 infinite array formation. Based on the introduction, it is necessary to use complete sets of Dao vessels to be evoked and that the units need to be in the multiplications of 9. The more Dao vessels used to evoke the array formation, the greater the power it produces. If 9 great overarching Dao vessels were to be used to form the array formation and that they fit perfectly, there is even the possibility of killing a demi-sage with it. If 81 great overarching Dao vessels are used to evoke the array formation, it can entrap those of the Saint Lords. If 9 venerate Dao vessels are used, then it can even kill a Saint Lord. As Mountain Master Tian Yuan explained, his face was filled with shock. I don't know whether the specific effect is true, but it was auctioned off to the Heavenly Buddha. By the way, Yu Fei asked me to send you a message that there will be a venerate conference held tomorrow on the southern side of Tianyuan Sea. She was hoping that you will attend. As he passed the message, Mountain Master Tian Yuan had a weird look on his face. Yu Fei, Jiang Ming couldn't help laughing. Why, is she going to be inheriting the throne of the Heavenly Emperor? Will those old people even agree to it? From the looks of her confident demeanor, they might really agree. Mountain Master Tian Yuan smiled. After all, Yu Fei is recognized as the #1 beauty in the infinite worlds and has many great friends in the Faux Sect, the Dragon Clan, the Demon Holy Palace, and many more. He emphasized the word great friends a lot. If that's the case, let's just go and enjoy the fun. Jiang Ming replied with a smile. If Yu Fei really ascended onto the throne of the Heavenly Emperor, it would be a great joke to the world. No, it should be that there would be loads of eventful happenings from it. Haha, it will definitely be very lively. Mountain Master Tian Yuan couldn't help laughing. They agreed to go together tomorrow, and Mountain Master Tian Yuan returned to his residence. Ascending to the throne of the Heavenly Emperor by throwing yourself to the world. As he thought of this, Jiang Ming couldn't help shaking his head even with his temperament. Yuan left. Junior sister Phoenix came over. Without uttering a word, she leaped and landed on him. Jiang Ming waved his hand. A thin mist loomed over and covered the entire balcony. Within the turbulence in the mist, the air was surging with the smell of the ocean. At dawn the very next day, Jiang Ming made breakfast while holding junior sister Phoenix in his arms. Hence, he was left with only a hand while cooking and eating. Ding! Congratulations to the host for learning to cook with one hand, rewarded with the special ability 3000 Chiliocosm Palm Technique. As Jiang Ming took in the information on the special ability, he couldn't help but be impressed. After comprehending the 3000 chiliocosm technique, he could conjure 3000 arms and launch palm attacks simultaneously. Each palm would contain a different kind of Dao. In other words, it was 3000 hands equipped with a total of 3000 Daos. That was not all. Even more frightening was that the 3000 Daos were interconnected, complementing each other and forming a superimposed power. As the special ability was evoked, there was nothing rivaling it. This is definitely a special ability above Saint Dao. Jiang Ming had made his own judgment on the technique. This special ability was too powerful. For the time being, this special ability even exceeded the power of the infinite transcendence technique. However, this was only temporary. I'll try to exercise and cook with 10 junior sisters in one go next time. The reward at that time should be at least of the great Dao. Jiang Ming couldn't help but look forward to it. As the slap fell, the surrounding mist trembled. Are you full yet? Yes, I am. Then why aren't you leaving? I'm still eating. Oh, you're still thinking of having the next meal after eating the last meal. Are you trying to exhaust me to death? If you're dead from exhaustion, I'll just find another one. You're looking for a beating. Hee, please do. Jiang Ming was rendered speechless. He reluctantly threw her out. Junior sister Phoenix ignited a ball of flame in the air. Standing in the middle of the ball of flame, she looked like a flame elf, twisting and turning her hips. Jiang Ming's eyes lit up. Senior brother, do you want to try it in flames? It seems good. Come on then. Let's make it another day. Another day. Jiang Ming turned around and looked in the direction of the Tianyuan Sea. However, various images appeared one after another in his mind. Junior sister Phoenix smiled. As the flames subsided, turning into a red dress, she landed in the immortal medicine garden. She just looked over at the residence where Shi Yao was, shook her head and whispered, "Why torture yourself?" After landing in the garden, she quickly began her cultivation practice. Yang Ming, on the other hand, rose into the air. Mountain Master Tian Yuan could be seen coming over toward him. The two walked together and soon came to the auction house. High above the auction house, Ryu Changfeng was, as always, still drinking his tea. As he looked at the two of them arriving, he couldn't help but raise his glass and smile. "Brother Jiang, I'm so disappointed that you didn't come to my auction yesterday. I was delayed." Jiang Ming landed next to him and then said to Mountain Master Tian Yuan, "Big brother, please go there first. I will join you later. Alright?" Mountain Master Tian Yuan cupped his hands at Ryu Changfeng and left. However, he was a little uneasy at heart as he thought, the relationship between these two is definitely not ordinary. Jiang Ming sat on the opposite side as if he was used to the place, picked up the teapot and poured himself a cup of tea. "Brother Ryu, now that the auction is over, when will you be going back?" "There's no hurry at all." Ryu Changfeng swirled the cup in his hand, and purple clouds could be seen rising above it. "Life is a long journey. Naturally, you have to find ways to enjoy it more. What's more, I've exceeded the mission I was on with this trip of mine to the Honggu Great Chiliocosm. As such, it's no hurry for me to return at all. I really envy you. You can enjoy it freely after the completion of your mission." Yang Ming sighed. Ryu Changfeng rolled his eyes. "Did I enjoy it as much as you? How many venerates have you done for your enjoyment? I just want to take it slow and bask in the sun. Unfortunately, things are never what I want. Brother Jiang, why do I have the urge to beat someone up by listening to your words?" The two chatted casually. As for the meeting held by Yu Fei, Jiang Ming didn't have much interest in it. Ryu Changfeng suddenly swept his hands across the sky. A divine luminance circulated around, sealing off the surroundings. Even after doing so, he still transmitted his messages telepathically. "Brother Jiang, the most valuable things I have here with me are items that contain the origin of the world, items that hold authority, items that symbolize status, and items that carry status. Do you want to trade for them?" Jiang Ming couldn't help laughing. Jiang Ming knew from Ryu Changfeng's tone of voice that he was trying to test him again. But Ryu Changfeng did have the intention to make a trade as well. Jiang Ming didn't care either. "What are you trading with?" Jiang Ming picked up the teacup and drank it all in one gulp. Well, Ryu Changfeng couldn't help trembling in his heart. From Jiang Ming's words, he understood that Jiang Ming had obtained the various artifacts after the so-called falling of the Heavenly Emperor. He trusted that the palm of the Heavenly Emperor, which hit through the abyss, came from the person in front of him, and he believed that the death of the great demon Venerate and Tai Jian in the Saint Demon Lord's secret realm was most probably his doing. Ryu Changfeng had no idea how he did it, but he immediately thought of Jiang Ming's identity as the inheritor of the Supreme Pagoda, which was a place of wonder. Suppressing the waves of emotions in his heart, Ryu Changfeng couldn't help but smile bitterly. "It seems that it is really difficult for me to name a price. However, Brother Jiang will not be disappointed with our next transaction." Ryu Changfeng said, "I can give you at least 5 times the equivalent worth in exchange for these items. The more the better." "The more the better?" Jiang Ming thought of the Heavenly Emperor of the Tianshan Great Chiliocosm. Of course, Ryu Changfeng was excited. This person was, sure enough, a big customer of his. In that case, you'll have to sanctify your Tao as soon as possible and gather more treasures. Jiang Ming smiled. You should know what I need. Saint weapons, long river of innate vital essence, long river of chaotic vital essence, Hong Meng's essence, innate spiritual roots, chaos spiritual root, top grade immortal veins and such. Listening to the tone of your voice, it seems that I won't necessarily be able to sanctify my Tao before you. Ryu Changfeng looked at Jiang Ming with a complicated expression. Looking at this little fellow in front of him, he was only a few decades old in reality. What about Ryu Changfeng himself? Putting that aside, what about the cultivation realm? Jiang Ming was of the golden immortal realm, and yet how many venerates had he slain? Even Tai Jian, the great demon venerate, the supreme treasure of the heavenly emperor and such. 9 out of 10 of them might have been of his doings. How incredible were these? Once Jiang broke the shackles of his inner world and improved a step further, there would be no obstacle for him towards Saint Tao. He would almost be able to directly reach such a level. In addition to his background, it didn't seem to be difficult at all. Let us compete then, Jiang Ming suddenly blurted. Jiang Ming had never thought that he couldn't achieve the Saint realm. It was just a matter of time for him. Ha ha. Alright, Ryu Changfeng laughed. Let's make a gentleman's agreement. Let's see who is faster on the road towards Saint Tao. After chatting for a while longer, Jiang Ming left. The south wasn't far, it was just at the coast of the Tianyun Sea. Many venerates had gathered there. There were those who Jiang Ming knew of and those who he didn't. Among them was the immortal venerate Tai Yin. When Jiang Ming saw one of them, he couldn't help but feel weird. Yet another avatar of the heavenly emperor. To think that he has been hiding so well. I really didn't think of it. As expected of immortal Emperor Tai Yuan. I admire you. I truly do. You haven't sanctified the way of Tao not because you can't do it yourself, but because of the world's shackle. If I wasn't here, you might be able to break the world's shackles and step into the saint realm with your plans, Jiang Ming lamented. He really admired this immortal emperor. Shan, one of Tai Yuan's avatars, race, purple-eyed demon cow gender, male cultivation, quasi-sage background. One of the avatars of Tai Yuan in the Honggu heavenly realm, the great monarch of the purple-eyed demon cow clan relationships, 48 innate talent, quasi-sage status, at the beginning of time, immemorial, a demonic bull known for its strength was born. Born with the innate power of controlling the law of power, he was equipped with infinite strength and invincible defense. Born with purple eyes, he could see through illusions. The 2 horns on his legs could penetrate even the sky. He was born with the information in his mind that he was a purple-eyed demon cow and that his name was Zi Jin. In ancient times, he fought throughout the world and even fought against the saint lords who had not yet sanctified their daos, making a great name for himself. Later on, he created the purple-eyed demon cow clan with his own blood by chance and became their great monarch. He later failed to snatch the great encounters of sanctifying Tao and was severely injured. As he was on the verge of death, he announced that his retreat into seclusion was to search for a way for the further breakthrough of his cultivation in order to preserve the inheritance of the purple-eyed demon cow. However, he unexpectedly discovered the birthplace of the innate yin and yang energy. As such, he integrated his own blood essence and soul remnant to form an unborn child, hoping that the fusion of the innate yin and yang energy would allow him to be reborn. Who would have thought that when the opportunity for his rebirth was near, Tai Yuan would discover the traces of his rebirth? When Tai Yuan saw the 2 energies of yin and yang, his heart was in great shock, and a scheme was formed in his heart. He directly destroyed the will of Zi Jin in the primordial embryo and cut out a portion of his own soul. He merged the portion of his soul into the embryo, using it to create an avatar of himself. His main body used a supreme technique to help his avatar integrate the yin and yang energies. After a long time, Tai Yuan's avatar was born and named Chongshan. Not only did his avatar inherit Zi Jin's heritage, but he also integrated the innate yin and yang power, giving him control of innate yin and yang special abilities. Even the pair of purple eyes became even more mysterious. They were able to pierce through the void and see through a person's essence. Looking through the 9 heavens and peering into the abyss were nothing of difficulty. The 2 horns on the top of the head, one black and the other white, represented the attributes of yin and yang. They contained terrifying power and bore the powers of yin and yang. With the help of his main body, Chongshan's cultivation soared rapidly, allowing him to reach the quasi-sage realm after hundreds of millions of years. He then returned to the purple-eyed demon cow clan. Around that time, Zi Jin's disappearance was far too long, and his aura imprint in the world had disappeared without a trace. Some peerless experts speculated that this incomparably powerful great monarch had fallen. This in turn caused many forces and races who Zi Jin had oppressed prior to his disappearance to become restless. After testing out their speculations a few times, they launched a genocide war against the purple-eyed demon cow clan. Upon seeing the imminent danger that loomed over his clan, Zi Jin rushed back, annihilated the intruding enemy in one fell swoop, and at the same time evoked his bloodline to reveal his identity to the public. As such, he naturally became the great monarch of the purple-eyed demon cow clan. However, with the increasingly prosperous ruling of the Saint Lord's lineage, these ancient clans had less and less space to survive. In the end, they resorted to hiding from the world together with the other 9 ancient races under the impetus of Chongshan. They then secretly accumulated their strength, waiting for the opportunity of their re-emergence. The 10 ancient races expanded all over the world. Not only were they helping each other, but they were also wary of each other. Chongshan, however, had a different plan of his own. He wanted to tie the remaining clans onto his war chariot. He used alchemy, tool refinement techniques, preaching of special abilities, great skills, and overwhelming courage to overwhelm the other 9 major races one after another. Although they did not fully submit to him, they still regarded him as their leader. With the ever-changing shifts of the sun and moon, time flew by. The 10 major races remained dormant throughout. Although their cultivation resources had decreased, their growth was not slow at all, as many experts were brought to the world in large numbers. The experts of the clan were also beginning to become eager, but were all suppressed by Chongshan. This phenomenon continued right until now. With Tai Yuan's scheme to dominate the world, their time had come. During the effort of hunting down the great demon Venerate, they did not hurry to make their appearance as they were afraid of the abyss and the other schemes by other forces. They unexpectedly found out the news about 2 Taishang sword sect's great monarchs being killed by Jiang Ming. This surprised Tai Yuan. As such, he continued to keep this avatar of himself hidden and continued waiting. He then overheard about Tai Jian's death in the secret realm of the Saint Demon Lord. The news about the great demon Venerate dying tragically and the sudden disappearance of the holy Dao vessels. Feeling weird from these occurrences, he started suspecting that there might be other peerless experts lurking in the dark and was prepared to investigate further before making a move. However, neither his true self nor his avatars, Venerate Tai Yin and Chongshan, were able to find out who was the one who had killed Tai Jian in the secret realm of the Demon Saint Lord. After the auction, Yu Fei convened a meeting of the Venerates to discuss the candidates for the Heavenly Emperor. He knew that his opportunity had arisen. The peerless experts of the 10 great ancient races quietly arrived at the meeting venue. Upon reading this, Jiang Ming was greatly shocked. He didn't expect that Tai Yuan's third avatar would be of such a big background. The great monarch of the purple-eyed demon cow clan competed with the Saint Lords back then and died tragically. Just as he was about to merge with the innate yin and yang energy to live a second life, Tai Yuan snatched this great opportunity of his. With that said, Chongshan's heritage and potential were much stronger than that of Ji Jin. After all, he had inherited everything from the other party and merged with the innate yin and yang energy. There is also the Tao of the law of power. Jiang Ming sighed. Alas, to think that the law of power actually existed. In the mythology of the prehistoric world of the Honggu realm, the law of power was a Tao that overwhelmed time and space, hence the strongest and most invincible. Even Pangu had used this power to split open the sky and break all laws. Kang Xuan, the heavenly emperor of the Tianshang Great Chiliocosm, is lacking a lot comparatively speaking. Just when he was thinking about this, he discovered Chongshan looking over his way. He had a burly physique, black and white horns on the top of his head, and a pair of purple eyes. At first glance, he didn't look like a good person, but his aura was restrained, which caused others to find it difficult to see through him. Chongshan smiled and nodded at Jiang Ming in a very kind manner. Jiang Ming later paid tribute as well. At that moment, Mountain Master Tian Yuan paced toward Jiang Ming in the air. His expression was a little unnatural as he hesitantly called out, "Brother, big brother, with our friendship that exceeds the shackles of life and death, there's nothing that we can't discuss." Jiang Ming laughed. He already had some guesses in his heart. In the world of life, there are always some entanglements in relationships. Mountain Master Tian Yuan did not dawdle anymore and said directly, "Some peerless experts of the human race invited you over. They're just right there." He glanced in the southeast direction. "Why didn't they come over themselves?" Jiang Ming asked in confusion. "Why else if not because of your previous unyielding attitude? They are afraid that they might cause you to feel disgusted if they come over." Mountain Master Tian Yuan almost rolled his eyes in response. Yang Ming smiled. "Let's go, big brother. Such is inevitable." "All right." Mountain Master Tian Yuan led him over in the air. More and more peerless experts gathered, forming small groups in 2s and 3s. There were even some great overarching golden immortals who overheard the news and came over. However, no matter how profound their backgrounds were, they never stepped into the circle of the Venerates. After all, they would be rejected to join them as they hadn't reached the level. It didn't take long for the 2 of them to arrive near the human experts. There were 3 of them. As soon as Mountain Master Tian Yuan waved his hand, he sealed off the surrounding area before he began to make introductions. "This is the great monarch Wan Lian. The infinite alchemy pavilion in the human realm is his inheritance." The other 2 were Immortal Venerate Tai Shu and Immortal Venerate Ting Yun. "Good to see my fellow Taoists." Jiang Ming cupped his hands and greeted. However, his heart slightly skipped a beat. In the former human realm, there was an infinite alchemy pavilion, and here in front of him was the great monarch Wan Lian. In the human world, there were the Taishu Sect and Qingyun Sect. In front of him now were immortal venerate Taishu and immortal venerate Qingyun. Jiang Ming was surprised at the coincidence. Seemingly to have anticipated Jiang Ming's doubts, Mountain Master Tian Yuan continued to explain, the Taishu Sect and Qingyun Sect of the human realm can be regarded as the inheritance of these two. However, with their forbearance characters, you might not have paid attention to them. Do the other sects also have immortal venerates? Asked Jiang Ming. If there were so many immortal venerates, how could our human race still be as scattered? Great Monarch Wan Lian smiled. We've met before. Jiang Ming cupped his hands yet again. This person did appear back then but remained in the shadows. Although he did not make a move that time, he was also a deterrent to the situation. You were the one who destroyed my inheritance in the human realm? Immortal venerate Qing Yun's tone was a little indifferent. Mountain Master Tian Yuan frowned, while Great Monarch Wan Lian's face turned gloomy. What? Do you want revenge? Jiang Ming laughed instead. He was actually a little curious about immortal venerate Qing Yun. Looking at the three people in front of him, Jiang Ming had a general idea of them. They were the elders of the Hall of Human Emperor. Alas, the Hall of Human Emperor, an existence since ancient times. They wanted to integrate the forces of the human race into one. In the past, the Hall of Human Emperor was one of the most powerful forces in the world. However, they were targeted by the Saint Lords and quickly disintegrated before disappearing into history. The only thing about the Hall of Human Emperor that remained was its will. Some human experts secretly banded together. As they stayed hidden from the world and focused hard on their cultivation, they were patiently waiting for their opportunity to reappear in the world and integrate the forces of the human race. When the Saint Lords left for the chaos, the Heaven Court was already established. During that time, the Hall of Human Emperor re-emerged in the world but was severely suppressed. Most of the experts they managed to gather ended up dead as well, causing them to stay dormant from the world. 100 million, billions, and tens of billions of years passed. It was to the point that people had already lost track of time. During their ascetic cultivation, the great monarchs such as Wan Lian were not willing to be cooped up like this. As a result, the few of them left their inheritance in every planar world, hoping to unearth some geniuses of the human race. Many forces, such as the infinite alchemy pavilion of the Tianyun world, originated from this. Of course, some forces of the heavenly realm left their inheritance in the human realm as well. This continued until one day when an earth-shattering battle took place in the infinite realm battlefield. A boy of the human race defeated the northern emperor Kun Peng and was even placed on a 100 years trial by the heavenly emperor. Upon passing the trial, he would be able to succeed the authority of the northern emperor. Upon receiving such news, they immediately wondered if there was a force that was targeting their Hall of Human Emperor and was trying to lure them out to catch them all in one swoop. Great Monarch Wan Lian confirmed that the rumors were true. Upon the confirmation, they were immediately excited and were prepared to invite Jiang Ming to join the Hall of Human Emperor. In addition, there was also Mountain Master Tian Yuan to be invited as well. However, being secluded from the world for such a long time had caused them to become extremely conservative. They continued to observe Jiang Ming from the sides. Later on, Yu Fei gave Jiang Ming a hard time, leading to his great battle that shocked the world. His capability finally tempted them. As such, they contacted Mountain Master Tian Yuan to use him as a middleman and informed Jiang Ming about their decision to elect Jiang Ming as the human emperor in the future. To elect Jiang Ming in the future, not one of the elders of the Hall of Human Emperor came forward when he was in trouble at that time. Hence, Jiang Ming turned down the offer immediately. In the abyss, Jiang Ming had fought against the three great monarchs of the Taishang Sword Sect. As a result, two of them were killed, and even Tai Jin was almost killed too. They knew that they couldn't wait any longer. They had to directly elect Jiang Ming as the human emperor now. To directly elect Jiang Ming by just passing the message to him, Jiang Ming refused the offer sternly and even warned them not to disturb his life again. Even Jiang Ming didn't expect that during this Venerates conference held by Yu Fei, three Venerates of the Hall of Human Emperor would turn up and were of unfathomable cultivation realm. According to the Human Path record, there were another two Venerates, making up a total of 5 Venerates in the Hall of Human Emperor. As for those of the great overarching Golden Immortal, there were quite many of them. Hence, the Hall of Human Emperor was already an extremely terrifying force. However, the strongest among them were but only of the later stage of the Quasi-Sage. As for the three in front of him now, they were merely in the initial stage of the Quasi-Sage realm. It's not about revenge. Immortal Venerate King Yun's tone was still very indifferent. The purpose of establishing sects and leaving inheritance was to nurture experts of our human race. During such a period, combat and death is unavoidable and is also the only way to lead a person onto the path of the peerless. However, you should not have killed all of them. It's alright to kill, but you should have at least ensured their inheritance or legacy remained. A legacy is like a ball of flame. As long as the flame remains ablaze, civilization will never be extinguished. Our human race will then have the opportunity to continue to rise. A ball of flame might be little, but once many gather, it can even burn down the sky, turning into an unstoppable force. To unite with others in fights and to fight in between unity. Jiang Ming, now that your strength is among the best, it's time for you to contribute some back to our human race. You are of the human race after all. Human blood flows in your body. It's fine when you didn't have the ability back then, but now that you do, you naturally have to stand up. Immortal Venerate Qing Yun couldn't stop as soon as he started preaching. In response to Immortal Venerate Qing Yun's remark, Jiang Ming merely smiled and said, "You have so many great remarks one after another. So let me ask you, have you stood up yet?" Through Immortal Venerate Qing Yun's status, Jiang Ming learned that this person wasn't of bad interest to him and was taking the rise of the human race as his responsibility. However, Immortal Venerate King Yun wanted the rise of the human race to be based on the inheritance of the Hall of Human Emperor as its foundation and principle, and based on the will of the Hall of Human Emperor. He came forth this time to persuade Jiang Ming to take over the authority of the Hall of Human Emperor and inherit the will of the Hall of Human Emperor. At the same time, he would be restrained by a group of elders. In short, he just wanted Jiang Ming to stand in the limelight. As for the other things to be taken care of, the elders had already made plans. As for the way to convince him, it was by oppressing him with righteousness. In the face of righteousness, could he still disobey and not comply? It would be outrageous if he was to do so. However, Jiang Ming also discovered something. There were actually two different views among them on him taking on the throne of the human emperor. One of them was led by Elder Yuan, who was at the later stage of the quasi-sage realm. He wanted Jiang Ming to inherit the throne of the human emperor and then act according to the will of the inheritance. Another was led by great monarch Wan Lian. He thought that since they wanted Jiang Ming to take over the throne as the human emperor, they should submit to Jiang Ming as their leader, although with some resources that were restricted from him. Unfortunately, this influence of great monarch Wan Lian was far too weak to the point that in so many instances where he wanted to take the initiative to invite Jiang Ming over, he had to request Mountain Master Tian Yuan to speak on behalf of him to be safe. In the past hundreds of millions of years, I have nurtured 3 great overarching golden immortals and countless Tai and golden immortals. Immortal Venerate King Yun looked gloomy. He was very displeased with Jiang Ming questioning him. "That's it?" Jiang Ming chuckled lightly. "Isn't that enough?" Immortal Venerable Qing Yun flicked his sleeves and snorted coldly. "I also secretly sheltered at least 1 trillion of the human race. To be complacent with only this little achievement through hundreds of millions of years. I feel ashamed for you." Jiang Ming's smile gradually became indifferent. "If you want to oppress me with reasons and righteousness, then you must first stand on it yourself. Come then, let me ask you, what have I achieved?" "Your achievement," Immortal Venerable Qing Yun frowned. "Destroying the Tian Yuan realm. That should count as your achievement." Great Monarch Wan Lian grinned and couldn't help but turn his head. Immortal Venerate Tai Shu, on the other hand, looked down at his feet. Mountain Master Tian Yuan gave a wry smile and thought, "King Yun, oh King Yun, I know you are old-fashioned and narrow-minded, but not to this extent. I killed the Devil King of the Abyss and fought off the invasion of the immortals in the human realm." Jiang Ming lost his interest and said bluntly, "After I ascended into this realm here, I joined hands with Brother Tian Yuan and killed Bei Ming Hai, took down Kun Peng, destroyed the Demon Venerate of the Abyss, and many more. From the several battles, the number of Venerates that I've killed might be at least 6. Qing Yun, how many Venerates have you killed? How many Venerates has the Hall of Human Emperor killed from ancient times to the present? Come on, tell me." Jiang Ming gradually increased his voice as he spoke. Great Monarch Qing Yun's face suddenly turned ugly. He realized that he had miscalculated about Jiang Ming. He really did. This junior was too disrespectful to the seniors and didn't take them seriously. He originally wanted to suppress Jiang Ming with righteousness. As a result, he was instead suppressed. Upon looking at Jiang Ming's expression, it seemed that he might have perhaps made things worse. "God damn it, this is just a strategy of mine. Why is such a junior like you overreacting? That is why we are inviting you to become the human emperor." Great Monarch Qing Yun suppressed his rage and responded honestly. Jiang Ming opened his mouth and almost spat out a mouthful of blood at the remark.